All right. So if you go to Twitch, does it show that
Uh, yep.
streaming
It
right
just
now?
it just booted up.
All right. Perfect. All right. Then let me click this back. How
Back
does it
out
look
of
to you? Does it look good? Does it sound good?
and switch back. Unmute. Uh, Talk a little bit more from me real quick.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I guess we're just testing out things, making sure things work, see if anybody wants to join. But yeah, there's not too much. I'll put this away to the back. It'll be a discussion for another
But yeah,
time. There's not too
all right.
much.
You're coming
I'll put
through at
this
a
away
good
to the
volume.
back.
Let
It'll be
me
a discussion
kind of
for another
ramble for a
time.
little bit, and then
There's
I'll
not too much.
listen
You're
for
coming
myself on it real
through at a
quick.
good volume. Back.
Let
It'll be
me
a discussion
kind of
for another
ramble for
time.
a little bit, and then
There's
I'll
not too much.
listen
You're
for
coming
myself on it real
through at a
quick.
good volume. Back.
Let
It'll be
me.
a
All right.
discussion for
Both
a little
sound good.
bit, and then I'll. Okay.
Listen for myself on it real quick. Mute myself again so I don't hear us on a delay. Both sound good.
Yep. Okay. All right.
Mute myself again so I don't hear us on a delay. Both sound good.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, got some Skarner stuff here. Get rid of the Google search. All right. Yeah. So, welcome. If anybody's here, who do we got? We got Forge. All right. Yeah. Let me know, anybody, if there's an issue with volume. I'll try to fix it. I've been having to deal with that past hour, so just let me know. But yeah, we're here to discuss this first episode, getting back into streaming. I've been putting it off forever, and I just said, you know what? Might as well do it. Why wait? So, not really going to be doing about too much here. Just going to be discussing about Skarner and his rework, what Riot is planning to do with him, or some ideas, and then what our ideas are, what we like, what we dislike, and so forth. I'm with my good friend Jinx here.
Hello.
Um, yeah, we're just gonna ramble, and if you guys just want to listen, have it in the background, or want to chime in, I'll have chat on the side. I'll try to take a look every once in a while. But yeah, I plan to do this every Tuesday to try to keep a schedule, to at least do discussions of this. But I also plan to do some more work on some other projects in the future, and I'll keep you posted. Uh, Twitter's down below if you care for that, and this will be really re-uploaded to my YouTube channel. So yeah, so let's get into it. Just letting you know, whatever we talk about, we're not talking about stats or like anything like that, or like how meta we want them. This is just us throwing shit out there and what we would like to see or expect, or what we don't want. So yeah, Skarner. Um, me and Jinx have talked about Skarner probably the most out of any other champion, if I had to be fair. Uh,
Yeah, I remember the long discussion on it.
yeah. Um, I guess we could talk about like what's your experience with Skarner? When did you pay attention to the Scorpion Boy? Do you remember?
Shoot. No. I remember picking him up a couple seasons ago, and it being a crystal scorpion, it just kind of appealed to me. Oh, my phone just died right before I sent you that picture too.
Oh.
Um, but I think I picked him up. I played around with him a little bit, and that was prior to the crystals scattered around the map.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what his whole kit was back before that, as far as his passive. But then they came out with that rework, and I kind of dropped him for a little bit. And then as I got more used to it, I picked it back up. And I don't have as much of an issue with it, but I see the flaws in it. and the fact that it's so punishing to Skarner to not have a good kit built around using it.
All right. My first experience with Skarner, first time I ever saw him was I was just playing some ARAM and I got him. And my brother told me, "Oh, you might like him. You just build him like a tank, and you'll have fun." And I did. I had a lot of fun with him. And this was after, from what I know, this was after his rework, his first rework has happened. And I fell in love with it. I loved the fact that he was this tank with some CC he could spread around. He could just grab a person and drag them. Was the funniest thing to me.
Yeah.
And I really liked him. Surprisingly, he's the number one like most success I've ever had in like he's my number one like he's the highest win rate champion I have is Skarner. Which I don't play a whole lot of nowadays just because I'm not really a jungler. I guess we should kind of talk about where our position is from. I'm mostly a casual player. I don't really particularly play anything besides normals. I've recently been doing ranked. Got put into bronze with some bad, just people purposely wanting to int right away. Had a Yumi just attach and literally not cast an ability a couple games. So
Uh,
but I'm willing to stream some games of that maybe in the future and climb my way up. Bronze one right now, and my hope is to by the end of the year get to gold. And if I get to there sooner, I'll just keep going, see where I go. But I'm primarily a top lane, mid lane, followed by support, then jungle, and then ADC last. What about you?
uh, I kind of the same idea as far as just playing normals. I don't play to be super competitive inside it. I really started out playing League, with friends and whatever else. It was a nice kind of bump up from playing Dota back on Warcraft 3. And initially, I kind of fell in love with the whole MOBA idea. Five people working together.
Mm,
And that really appealed to me. I don't like playing FPS games, call me what you will, but I've never been that good at a lot of mouse control first person shooters. So
mm-hmm,
being able to play something where the entire game was built from a top down perspective and still be fast paced, not real time strategy really appealed to me. And then when Riot really picked up the pace after like season 5 or whenever they did the world rebuild,
mm-hmm.
I really got sucked into the lore behind it. It was a big thing with when I grew up, I played a lot of World of Warcraft. It was nice to sit there and look at the world and see the way things are playing out update by update.
Yeah, I can agree there. I my first MOBA was Smite, and then from Smite I went to Overwatch, and then after a year of that, I went to League of Legends, and I started League because I saw Shyvana, and my brother was playing it. My brother is way better at this game than I ever will be, but he has more time in his hands, so that's helpful for him. And I thought that was really cool. And so I got the game. And the first champion I ended up getting on my own that wasn't like free gift. Start with this. Was actually Maokai, a tank, because uh nobody on my team during the time was playing tanks at all, and I was like kind of upset. I was like, man, I've got Garen here and nothing's really going. And I really enjoyed it. And tanks kind of just became my go-to favorite kind of class. And I like playing things casually. I play things in lanes that they're not supposed to. Like I like the Soraka mid once in a while, the Bard mid. That stuff's kind of fun. Hecarim top, Vi top. It's fun. And Skarner is one of those champions I I just don't enjoy jungle for the fact of it feels like the babysitter role. Like you have to be in every lane at once.
Hmm.
But what I really did have fun with was playing him in top lane. I could trade with people. He had a stun, and you could drag people under turrets if they were being super aggressive. But yeah, that's my history with Skarner. I haven't really played him much ever since they announced he got a rework, which we put here on the poll here. He won by a landslide.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Well, Gothic Skin also won, which that'll be interesting. But you know, up here, yeah, there we go. Totally professional. Totally had this all planned out weeks in advance. But yeah, he hard won. Which was very interesting. I want to talk about that for a little bit because I am very surprised that Skarner won in the first place.
Going into the VGU, I thought it was going to be a fight for Skarner to get close to Shyvana, with Shyvana being in the lead. Especially considering the last VGU, she was what, a very close second.
She's been second place twice in a row, for at least for these past two. And from what I kept hearing from people, people wanted either Shyvana, Tryndamere, or Nocturne, which I was very surprised to hear how Nocturne was last place. But I've listened to a bunch of popular YouTubers and everything. A lot of them have said like they want Tryndamere or Shyvana just because their gameplay is not very modern right now. I voted for Skarner because he's my boy and I want to see him back in the spotlight. And he's just the way he currently is just not possible. And I was super
Mm.
happy that he won.
Yeah, because I mean, looking at the roster of five they gave, I Skarner is a very big personal favorite. I'm a very big person on entomology, insect stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at the rest of the list, Nocturne, while he can use some lore touch ups and maybe a little bit of design touch up, I still very much like Nocturne's gameplay pattern.
Mm-hmm.
I get it has its clunkiness, but for being an assassin, not having to build a spell shield is a very nice safety that no other assassin has right now.
Also, the fact that he's got one of the most iconic alts in the game.
Yeah.
The fact that
Um,
just everybody blind, you can't do anything to like be immune to that is nuts.
and then you look at, say, the rest of their list. Kog'Maw, he's still in a very good place right now. I get that he can use some lore rework, but that's going to require, you know,
Mm-hmm.
ironing out some creases in the rest of the void.
Even when this list came out, Kog'Maw was doing okay. Like
Yeah.
the
And
thing about Kog'Maw, why they put him on the list was he just doesn't match what the Void currently is. Is
when
the
you read what
reason.
they wanted to do for him, it everyone's big concern with him, when you look at, say, before the VGU came out,
Mm-hmm.
was he's one of those champions where with his range, his max HP damage, his slow, his safety,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that he has a built-in afterlife mechanic,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people gave him credit for being a very strong late game scaler, and that made a lot of people hate playing against him. And the first thing Riot said they wanted to do with the rework is double down on that,
Yes, they
which
wanted to
really
double down on
surprised
it,
me
but
that it beat.
the thing that and that's the thing with the poll is a lot of people didn't read what they were going to do, and with Kog'Maw, they said that they might just sacrifice the fact that he was a hybrid champion. Skarner or not Skarner, Kog'Maw, you can build AD or AP,
Mhm.
and that's like a big draw for him. A lot of people like that. You'll see those people who like playing AP Kog'Maw or AD Kog'Maw. AD is more common because that's technically the more powerful build, but he can go AP and still perform very well.
I've had to play against one recently, and firsthand, albeit on an ARAM map where you don't have as much free range safety from it,
Hmm.
he hit like a truck.
Oh, definitely. And
I mean, it
that's
took 2 hits and you burned half your HP right there.
yeah.
No
I
matter who you
prefer
were.
the AP Kog'Maw. It's more fun than just right clicking. Uh, but yeah, Shyvana, they wanted to go down more in the whole like this warrior dragon person and give more of a dragon in playstyle, which we'll talk about Shyvana in another episode because there's a whole thing we'd have to discuss with her.
The whole thing as far as play wise, and she fits a very large chasm in the lore,
She well,
a confusing chasm.
she's part of Demacia, and there's a lot that with Demacia that they've addressed, and a lot that they just aren't touching up on. They're doing nothing with. And Shyvana's just one of those. Like she got
Yeah,
the runification affected her, which let's be honest, the runification who it targeted and who got the sentinel and all that stuff was was a waste. They picked terrible champions for those things like like like
they pick
Yorick. Come
terrible
on.
champions and then they completely breeze over ones like Yorick,
Yes.
whose entire lore up to this point, despite never being touched on, is entirely built against Viego.
Yes. That was his whole thing. And Shyvana's only thing that happened is she has a bit of an issue with you know, the whole Mage Rebellion thing, not knowing which side to be on. She becomes Big Scary Dragon, and that's like really about it. Like the runification didn't do anything during the event, and they haven't done anything for afterwards besides maybe some small side stories here or there for some of them. I know Pantheon got one, but like that's about it. Which I'll that's Pantheon's for another time.
Hmm. And
um,
then you
Tryndamere
look at Trin.
Tryndamere was the one I think most people did not read when they voted. They were going to keep his ultimate and double down on him being a split push crit champion. I was like, that's the thing people don't like about him. Because a lot of people just
And
heard
everyone
rework
wanted
and that was it.
rework.
Skarner, though, they fully said will rework from like probably from ground up, like from scratch.
Hmm.
They don't even know if they're going to keep the ultimate. Like there's so much with him that they could just completely scrap, and I think that was the fairest thing to do. Even though I personally really like the ultimate, it's kind of fun and iconic to like nobody else does that, but at the same time, it's like yeah, if it has to go, it has to go. But yeah,
And I think the big thing with Shyvana and getting second place in all these VGUs, in a personal opinion,
mhm,
is she really deserving of it? Yes. I do think Shyvana is really deserving, both design, gameplay, lore, all three aspects of her are desperately in need of a rework. It's something to help clarify it, bring her all together. But every VGU they've done, they've thrown one champion that needs it more.
mhm.
Because last time it was what? Udyr last time?
It was Udyr last time, and he needed it desperately.
He needed it, gameplay. You watch Udyr gameplay, and
Mm,
it's just how fast can I mash my buttons in the correct order? It
correct. And before
repeatedly off.
that one was Volibear and Fiddlesticks. Fiddlesticks needed it more than any of those other champions. I was personally fine with Volibear the way he was back then. I thought I really enjoyed the table flip, like throw
Mm.
over the shoulder thing. I thought that was great, but they did two reworks. The new Volibear, he's definitely more fun to like he's that more aggressive like diver, which that's great. He has a very unique ultimate which I admit it's a better ultimate. Like his abilities are better. I just miss old just build pure tank volley, but that's just me.
Yeah. And
But
Volibears, I feel they reworked them less, I guess, to do with the kit because I mean it was very satisfying if you played the old Volibear
hmm
to man up and fight someone level 1 and then
hmm
immediately regenerate all your HP with the passive.
yes, like I like the fact that ult caught people off guard. You could flip people over. He had a unique damage increase if enemies were knocked up, so you could pair him up with other champions with knockups. Like it was interesting. He felt like Big Tinky Bear, and the playstyle's not quite the same. The build's not quite the same what it used to be, but I'll admit he's in a healthier spot.
Yeah. Um
So with that in mind, we can quickly talk about this. I will to this day. Like like even though I started League of Legends somewhat later, I've paid attention to the game because my not only was my brother playing it, but I always liked watching it. It was very fun to watch. Um, I will say Fiddlesticks is the best goddamn rework they've ever done, and I'm hoping Skarner can top it because not only for Fiddlesticks did he keep everything besides the bouncing crow, they kept the theme the same, his playstyle the same, and buffed the crap out of his passive. It's like they literally reworked him, and it
yeah.
they didn't delete the playstyle. The playstyle is exactly the same. You just have to just don't have a point and click silence. You have to aim it.
Yeah, and the other thing in like built into that too is not only did they keep most of his abilities, they improved on a lot of them.
Oh,
Life Drain
definitely
is no longer an immediate single target. It's a
correct.
AoE drain, albeit it's weaker against not champion creatures, which was a big part of old Fiddlesticks is you were low health, you walked up and drained a cannon minion for your health bar.
Yes.
Now he has to play a bit smarter with it or attract large crowds. But the trade off is if you're in the middle of a team fight and no one's there to CC you out of it,
It's
you
mad
get it back.
damage.
You immediately get it back afterwards, pretty much.
Yes,
You
and it's
cut
mad
what
damage.
60% of the
It's
cooldown.
percentage health damage too.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that they did was they buffed his fear. No longer do you have only one person you can fear with one button press. It's anybody you hit with any of your abilities and they haven't seen you for like half a second, they are feared.
Yeah, and
And
then it's not even just a oh you're feared. Now you're feared again. Like if, for example, you used to fear him and then say a Nocturne finished his fear, you're just feared.
Mhm.
Fiddlesticks is if you've been feared, his next fear just doubles the effectiveness of
no,
what it does, which is a
no. It increases the if they've already been feared, they take additional damage from the queue,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but they're not
It
feared
doubles the
anymore.
effectiveness of the damage part, not the fear part.
Yes.
Which if you initiate on a tank and you fear them, cool, you knocked them out of the fight. But if you take time to plan your strategy around fearing them with something besides that, it makes your initial impact against tanks or high HP players much more noticeable.
Yes, but the fact they also made it where I don't remember exactly if I don't think Fiddlestick's original fear did damage. I think it was just a fear. This
It
does
was
do
just a fear,
damage and it's percentage health,
yeah.
which that's just nice. And like yeah, that's the thing is they upped the horror theme. Like they kept his theme, they kept his play style. Like literally like you could not say they could have done a better rework than Fiddlesticks. I know some people might say Warwick. I know some people um might say like Darius or something like that. But I am going to plant my feet and hold my ground that Fiddlesticks is the best goddamn rework they have done.
I think in order of my top three reworks, Fiddlesticks takes number one because if you like watch even his animations alone, on top of just the visual design of it,
Mm-hmm.
the animations themselves play into the fear aspect that he's supposed to embody. You
Yes.
take an old quirk that the old Fiddlesticks had, being a scarecrow. He stands still and he just stops.
Mm-hmm.
That's a built-in mechanic now because it completely mimics the effect of his trinket, his built-in trinket,
Yes.
which, a side note, as a buff on its own, embodies both a yellow trinket and a red trinket on its own.
Well, it's more of instead of a yellow trinket, I'd say it's like a ghost poro and a red trinket.
Yeah, to the
Because
fact that if someone sees it, it goes away.
yes, if they see it, it does go away. Not a lot of people get fooled by fiddlesticks trinkets, but you know, if you can pull it off, you can pull it off. But the thing that I wanted
I've
to,
been
but that's the
interested.
thing I also want to touch on is I know we're talking a lot on fiddlesticks, but like he's a great example of how to do it correctly. Is the theme. They
Mm.
the theme, the play style, like that's the thing I want them to hammer in with all future reworks, especially this Udyr one that's coming up. Like they don't have to keep it from the previous one. If the previous champion was an issue, like for example, Fiddlestick's lore was just the old summoner lore. Like it's completely outdated. It was awful. This one,
But then
he's
they
a
turned it into
actual
a
part.
worldwide folk tale, pretty much.
Yeah,
Like a
he's a
worldwide boogeyman.
well, but he's a living boogeyman. He actually exists, is the thing, because he's a demon.
Yeah.
Apparently, one of the original demons, one of the first ones ever born. Apparently, and he's the resulting of like the scream, the fear of the birth of the universe or something.
Mm.
Um, and it's like, wow, that's really cool. And the voice changes they did and everything was amazing.
Oh, the
If
voice
you
actor really went above and beyond with it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. When you like learn how he did it and everything, you're like, how did you not lose your voice? Shit is amazing. But anyways, so for Skarner, what do you want to talk about first, Jinx? You want to dive
Um,
into do we just want to go with the concept for Skarner?
yeah, I'd say go over like the design and idea of it before we delve into any abilities or anything. Because, for example, like in my instances, a lot of that'll play on the designs I've thought of going into
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah. Um,
Uh,
let's see. That's the old one when they did the rework. So this one is, from what I've seen, supposedly this is a fan concept one, but this is from somebody that they've listened to before. If not, this is just a good stepping one we can talk about. So these are the if you can pull up my stream, Jinx. These are the ones that they have decided. These are the ones that are like the big ones that they've been thinking that some people have been thinking about, and
mhm.
and we can go through them one at a time. But the top one there is the first two rows are attempts to keep Skarner nearly identical while making him a little more unique to the League of Legends roster by adding some fancy elements to stand out. The third one is to reinvent the Brackern, so give him a an ancient Shuriman kind of look. And then the final one is a continuation of the story if he got captured by the nobles of Piltover and stuff.
Kind of
So
like a steampunk tech evolution of it.
pretty much. So we can go with the first two rows. I guess we'll just talk about visually what we're kind of thinking about for Skarner. If they kept the insectoid design for him, they want him to be bug-like above all and anything. I think these first two lines are really good concepts. What do you think of? Is there one in particular you want to start with, or?
I mean, it'd probably be best if we just start from the upper left and work our way, book style down the
Okay,
list.
sure.
But I do want to say, looking at the first six right away,
Hmm.
if I had to kind of pick ones I liked and one that I probably don't like the progression of, not saying it's bad or anything, but one that doesn't appeal to me as much as the others, and then two that really appeal to me.
Hmm.
I very much like the third one in both rows.
Okay.
I like the idea, coming from Monster Hunter standpoint. I like the idea of big, heavy, cleft legs like the top row third one,
Okay. Yep.
where it arcs down and it stands on the end of its claw. That's a very cool aspect to me. And then um, the second row third one, pulling from an idea of a childhood fantasy. My favorite thing from Ben 10. If you remember
Yes.
Brainstorm, the way its
Brainstorm.
body shape
Yes.
was.
Yes.
I really like the head shape paired with the like three-prong claws and then just a large arcing very angular tail.
Hmm.
And if you notice too with the design of the legs for it, if you look towards the back legs, it's
Yep.
entirely built to pick the whole body up.
Hmm.
And then
I.
the one I don't like as much is the middle one for the bottom row. I
Uh.
like the kind of body idea for it, but
Mm,
having it stand upright in the front is a bit odd, and then splitting the tail in two seems a bit weird unless they play around him using two tails.
yeah. Um. Uh. Yeah. I'm kind of in similar mindset, but we'll go through it. So the first one is him with wings. Do scorpions have wings?
No, I
Well,
don't
okay.
believe there is a scorpion with wings. But before I, eat my shoes, let me double check.
All right. Because yeah, I'm thinking. I think it's an okay idea. Maybe he has wing-like effects for an ability. I think might be something, but I don't think I would enjoy him being flying, because then that seems more hornet-like to me.
The closest thing that appears like a scorpion with wings is the scorpion fly, which is in and of itself is an insect. Um, but it does have a chunk of tail that is functionally identical to a scorpion tail.
Okay. I would say I think I'm below. I don't think it quite meets what I'm looking for. It doesn't look scorpion to me, and
It
I
looks
think that's the
very much like a corruption if you think of Dota 2's Viper,
mm,
in the sense that he's just like effectively a flying scorpion serpent, but
hmm.
without. Oh, he does have wings. Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
much like that, just without claws, and it feels a bit similar to other stuff we've seen. Whereas a crystal scorpion is very much a unique thing in most MOBAs. I don't
Yep.
think I've seen a MOBA yet with something similar to that.
Yep. I mean I've seen like monster champions where they're just big and gross or stupid. And that's the thing with Skarner that I really liked, like what his current lore is he's actually pretty intelligent. He's not a monster. He's not like just a mindless creature out destroying things. That's Rek'Sai basically.
Mm.
But he's smart, and I think there's a lot of room for showing something like that. For the second one, it honestly, I think the second one looks too clean. If I had to say anything, I think it's like kind of boring. It looks just Scorpion with some
I
weird tire track designs, I guess.
I would like the second one in the top row. I like the claws. I like the very sharp, almost bird-like, pointiness to the claws.
Are you talking the
But the
second one down? The first
second
one
one
down?
top row.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's the one I'm
Um,
talking about.
I like the idea of the tail if it were to keep the idea of abducting someone because you hook them, you pull them in, they are pulled against you. Um, But the claws are the big good point for me. Having
Mm,
those sharp, almost bird beak like claws is a
hmm
very nice. That's a clean design that I'm all right with. But as I talked to you about before this, I don't want Skarner to end up as a speed machine of a
Yes,
bruiser slash assassin, and that looks very much like he's a speed machine.
I agree. The third one there, the last one on the first row, I would say is my favorite of all of the bug ones here in the top two. I like because I like tanks. I said earlier, and that
Hmm.
to me is like if they made him tank, that's the design I would love for them to go with. I think that looks super sick. It's very unique compared to like you look at that doesn't look like anything that's like in the jungle. That doesn't look like anything in another game. Like that looks very interesting. I like because it's the front claws are rather than them being claws like regular scorpions, it almost feels
Think
like they've curled in and they're like used for like smashing
yeah,
instead.
shoot, what's the name of the shrimp?
Oh,
Um,
you're thinking of like the not the shrimp. You're thinking of the oh
mantis shrimp.
yeah I think it's the mantis shrimp maybe.
Yeah, it's the
Uh
one where it whips out a claw really hard and punches things like very hard.
yeah, but rather than like punching it, like lifts it up to. Oh,
Yeah,
pardon me. Oh, been a long day.
like the Celtis Queen from Monster Hunter, where it's very much from the same species as the smaller Celtis, but
Mhm.
when you look at the dimorphism of a female to that rate, like to that species, it's
Mhm.
a tank. When you look at it, you see a tank. It
Yeah.
heaves big, heavy plated shield limbs instead of
Mhm.
walking around on small insect-like legs.
Yeah. I also like the fact that the tail is big and thick. So,
It draws a lot of the accentuism that League puts into a lot of stuff. Like you look at Braum. While a regular human might not pull into a lot of stuff, if you watch their videos on their animation, when
mm,
he does abilities like where he throws the shield, they stretch and they accentuate movements.
mhm.
If you see a big tail coming at you, that's something that is easily accentuated compared to his current animation with his tail, where it swings forward a bit and you just see a blue beam touch your opponent, and that's it.
Yes. I agree. The thing I was just going to draw with it though is they make it look insect thin like while also still making it have the profile look of a tank, which
Hmm.
I personally think is kind of hard to do with insect designs because you either go like how like Elden Ring for example, if anyone's been playing that, big giant ant with flat head, that's like that's the tanky one. It's like
Hmm.
that's kind of boring personally. And this one, it's just it's got the beefy front claws to that it's showing off that it's like, it's not gonna hold back. It'll beat the shit out of you. But
It
it's got the
also,
big giant stinger in the back.
yeah, and the fact that the rest of the body's frail shows that it's not so much a tank in the idea of Malphite, where it's a
Oh yeah,
tank because it's fat.
yeah. It doesn't
It's
look
showing that it's
fat
a
for a
tank
tank.
because the parts that it holds in front of it that you're directly going to be looking at and touching look
Hmm.
menacing and strong, but the rest of the body doesn't look like it needed to follow suit.
And I'm a person too that like if they had to do like if they went with that design, I'd actually ask him, can you make the player model for it, like the base one, actually a lot like make a Sejuani size? You know how Sejuani has a massive hitbox because they have to do the whole
Make it
boar.
a big creature, yeah. It,
Make it a big creature, and I'm telling you that thing that look of Skarner will get people to look at it and be like, "Holy shit, that's a champion!"
Hmm.
Like just
It also,
visually like as a spectacle, that sounds like amazing. Sure, maybe balance wise, it's not that fun. You have a big hitbox, you're gonna get hit by everything, but there's ways you can balance that. Smite has done
yeah,
that with Khepri,
it's
which is
done that
big
with
giant scarab
Stormbreaker,
sun guy.
Cerberus. Yeah, it has that thing where you're gonna get hit more if you're a bigger character,
Hmm.
but you expect that. It's not
Yes.
like if you pick Aatrox and you're getting hit with skill shots at the end of the sword. It's not a deceptively large. You're expecting him to get hit, but you know there's going to be a trade off to it.
Oh, definitely. Um, if there's not anything else you want to say about it, we can move on to the next one.
I'm going to move on.
The next one, I kind of like the tail of it. The first one of the second row here.
Hmm.
And the pincers are kind of cool. I just don't. I personally don't think it meshes well together. To me, that looks like he's going to be an assassin.
Jump in, grab someone,
Yeah,
skewer or whatever.
to me that looks like he's going to be like a full combo, beat the shit out of you while kidnapping you.
The other aspect, as far as looking at it and seeing an assassin or
Mm,
like a jump in, whatever else, is I guess this is more of a knowledge of insects coming out more so than just the way the person drew it. Is look at the legs compared to other iterations that they've drawn here. If you look at scorpion biology, legs on scorpions usually face out because other than trying to turn and tilt their body in different directions, they're not trying to jump anywhere.
mhm,
But when you look at spiders, for example, who sit with legs very much, in a cocked position, seeing the legs bent in like that with a lot of hooked appendages, for lack of a better word, appendages that you can grab and hold people with on the tail, the claws, etc.
mhm,
Those legs seem like they're very much built for lunging. He's not as
mhm.
much of a stand your ground as more of a get in there, get out very fast.
Yes. And if there's anything I'm going to say about Skarner, I don't want him to just be I think the best monster comparison right now to him is Rek'Sai. Big purple monsters. They're both located in Shurima, which is kind of weird. Uh, but like she has that stinger in the back with the whole lunging as her abilities and everything. She's not scorpion-ish. She's like, void bug something.
Hmm.
But that design to me looks like that's just Skarner, but as a void creature. And I'm just like,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm personally not a fan. The next one here, we both are probably not a big fan of here. And I'm just going to say what I want to say first before I let you go in. When I looked at that, that to me just looked like a Evelyn, but shaped for Skarner. The whole two prong things that Evelyn has in the back, that's what that looked like to me. And I'm not a fan of it. I don't like how upfront, upright it is. And yeah, I'm not a fan of it.
Looking at it, I like the idea of once again the downward facing claws. It's not using claws for something in front of it as much as it's using them, kind of as a wall to protect what looks to be very vulnerable legs.
Hmm.
um, but the one thing I really like about Skarner is in terms of elevation. When you look at a character's design, he
Mm,
is being a scorpion. He's a very grounded design. He's very close to the ground.
yes.
Whereas you look at something like uh, Sejuani, a very grounded champion. And then you turn that
Hmm.
around and you look at someone like Janna or someone like Sona. They're not grounded. They're more of a lighter, whimsical, up in the air, that kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
I was thinking like
it,
it to me that looks like if they wanted to make a fighter one, like just go full bruiser rather than a
mm,
tank or a juggernaut, just make a basically make them like a ribbon, you know, just full on
to
diving
me,
in.
it screams more of uh, kind of a mix between Evelyn and the fact that it, like, maybe it'll lunge a bit more. You know, another one of those,
Mhm.
it lunges at stuff. And also
Yeah.
with the fact that it's two tails and the rest of its body does not look well suited to hitting things, it seems like it would almost play with a combat style. ah, Like, imagine Thresh or Rakan's auto attack animation.
Mhm.
They have two of them. They have a close range and a long range, albeit melee. It feels like, maybe if you got close enough, it might try and thwack something with the claws. But
Mhm.
with the claws being centered around so much of its body, it's not using the claws to protect its body. It's using them almost as like a last resort. Whereas
Uh,
most of animations, it feels like that design might push Skarner to more of a mid-range melee.
yeah, I'd say if they put a third tail on it and just make it where it just fights with the tails, like it can't like raise the front claws up all that much. It just uses it for running and charging at people,
Hmm.
and it's just using the tails for all the auto attacks and fighting. Maybe. It just looks like I don't know. It just looks one of the least Skarner ones to me. And then the last one, the brain surge,
Brainstorm.
brainstorm. I think it's okay. It to me it looks more crab than scorpion, but
Hmm.
I
It
definitely
definitely has
like
a
it
lot of
more
mass.
than the other ones besides the one we really liked, the third one on the top.
Hmm.
I just don't like most of the those Skarner designs because it just doesn't feel this is at least for me, in my opinion. I guess this is me kind of just saying it early, like saying it kind of early, but I just want Skarner to be a tank. If for a class, if he was going to get reworked, I prefer tanks. I think he's super enjoyable when he's tanky, and I like the tank items. I think they work really well with him.
Hmm.
But yeah, but that also screams like somewhat like a tank to me. And it's like I'd be fine with that one or the one right above it. Like those are the two Skarner designs I like the most so far from what I've seen here.
Hmm.
Um but now let's get into the next one. This is if we went like a more ancient Shuriman civilization idea. I liked
Like a reimagining of the Brackard.
yes, reimagining. The first one I think is okay. It looks like Skarner. It's just going to be more crystal, I guess,
It
than
looks like
bug. I
a
I
more crystal Skarner than the kind of, I guess,
mhm.
you know, dulled down. I don't want to say humanized because it's not really humanized, but smoothed Skarner that his current design looks. If you imagine crystal.
Yes, I would say it'd be a cool skin. I don't think I'd enjoy it as much for a Skarner.
Hmm.
The second one there, I'm going to be honest, I not a fan. The idea of a his finger is just something that's actually just levitating and he hits with, just it just doesn't really connect well. At least in my opinion here on the scorpion aspects.
Hmm.
Like it's scorpion in the sense, oh, it's got a sting and that it's moving around, but it's like it doesn't feel like it's connected with the body, so it'd be kind of hard to see what the enemy is like an enemy Skarner is doing with the tail. And
Hmm.
I think it'd be maybe a little too hard to probably program. I think that's the least likely out of all the skins is that one. What do you think?
Mm, I I do like, you know, disregarding the tail and up on that one because a lot of my points follow a lot like in suit with what you were saying.
Hmm.
Where it, if you look at a lot of champions, I guess the one that comes to mind is Aurelia, someone who attacks with something that's not inherently attached to them. Um,
Hmm.
the only reason you see a lot of movement from Aurelia herself is because she's a war dancer to an extent. She
Yep.
move the blades, so you see her move to do the attack animation.
Well,
But
most of
if
the
you
time, if
most
we're
of the
going to
time,
add in meta knowledge, it's animation canceling bullshit and other things that people can do with a
yeah,
champion like that. But it's stuff
um,
like that too. Like I think animation canceling with like a floating piece that's supposed to be their main, like one of their big main things you're gonna see on a champion.
it's gonna
Ah,
look janky. You're gonna
it's gonna
see
look
it move
really
around a lot.
jank. Yeah.
But I do like the body more so on it. It it's
I
a different look than Skarner, but if you look at it, it's very flat. It's more, it's a nice little difference that you
the
don't see on a lot of
the
the reworks
only
for it.
problem with it being flat, like that level of flat, is like we said in the second one at the top.
It looks
It,
streamlined.
it's streamlined. It looks like this is going to be like it's going to be like that cockroach that just phew, just
Yeah,
rushes like crazy. It's like
especially with the lack of.
oh
I
god
mean,
no.
if you're imagining the Brackern, if you look at the lack of segments to the legs,
Hmm.
it's levitating over those legs. You know, besides biology, that screams from a fantasy standpoint, it's going to go fast. It's not being restricted by anything.
Hmm.
It's
No,
just on
I just
moving
had the memory of watching Terraformers. These cockroaches and how fast they are and that dead eye look. Just nah, don't. I don't want to see that. Um, the next image, I
it feels like a void.
that just looks void.
Reiteration.
I don't see Skarner. That's just void. That doesn't look like a Bracker, and that doesn't look um like that looks like honest. That looks like they took a void brainstorm from Ben 10. Like a
Hmm.
void version of brainstorm. That's what I would say that is. I don't have much to say besides I think it's the least Skarner out of all of them. And that's saying something because there was the flying one that we talked about, or just like it does. That's not even really Scorpion look too much, but
Mm.
I mean it's still something. That one I just don't even see a thing besides it has Scorpion tail. And then last one, the bottom row here. Um, the more mechanical, the more machine one. This is the one where supposedly is, you know, he gets captured, experimented, turned to weapon, breaks out, and is now seeking revenge.
Mm.
Ignoring the lore for right now, we'll get to that later. Or at least I guess we can talk about it now before we go into the designs. I'm not a fan of the revenge part. If anyone's watched TP Skyne, I know Jinx has. I have. Recommend watching a lot of his videos. They're pretty good for the most part. Um, and he talks about like how it could fix, some of the lore with some of these other characters too. Because something I haven't mentioned with the other ones is lore wise, with these changes they could change that Hex Tech isn't the Brackern soul anymore. Because Skarner's lore has basically been a hindrance to Hextech
Hmm.
because the writers just refuse to acknowledge what the implications are of using Hextech because we now know, like meta knowledge currently, that that's Brackern souls. That's the souls like living energy of the Brackern being used to pump somebody's like fucking like I don't know a car or use their radio or whatever kind of tech they use over there.
Yeah, and it also brings up a major disconnect for Riot between arcane and in-world knowledge. I know they've
Yes.
gone out of their way to say that the worlds don't share a whole lot
Yes,
besides,
it's
real
not
basic stuff.
canon. It's not canon to the lore of League of Legends, but this is like if you didn't look at the whole of League of Legends, it's just this small thing, and now don't think too much of what of some of these things. Then yes, it's
And you look at that, and Hextech never once mentions the Brackern in Arcane. It's entirely
well,
manufactured harnessing.
that's the thing. Like, is it because it is mentioned that he got the stones from somewhere. Not necessarily they were
Yeah.
manufactured. They just turned the stones into gemstones. The they to their knowledge they might not even like Jason might not know their Brackern souls. He's just working on them because he knows they're high in magic.
Hmm.
They could add that, but I don't think Riot or the writers over at Riot, either whoever is the one in charge for Hex Tech over there, I don't think they have. They don't have the talent or the want to go into detail of what that means to use somebody's soul for their tech. Because when Seraphine, I know redacted, whichever one you want to prefer, I'm just gonna say that hello dies a lot. Uh, um, getting more people into the Twitch chat. Let's go. Woo, going up. Uh, where was I? Oh yeah, they don't like with Seraphine when they first made it. Like it was the whole thing that she knew that like it was a Brackern soul that was in the device that her like I think it was either her father made or got, and that's the thing. And it was the soul that actually taught her the music. It was the music of Skarner's people. But then when people
Hmm.
pointed out, oh, so she's using Skarner's people's soul that she now knows there's a soul inside of to power her hovercraft to be a pop star. And it's like, oh no, well, it's not a Brackern soul. This is a special hex tech that doesn't do that. And it's like, okay,
It, and another
it's
thing
it's like
TB
they're
Sky brought up too, with a couple, like when he went over Skarner in the breakdown that I read or listened to,
mm-hmm,
he does mention that after that whole fiasco, if you look at deep lore for the Brackern and the Hextech crystals,
mm-hmm.
most Hextech crystals now are synthetic. Most of them in the lore right now are synthetic recreations that work the same, but there are still Brackern crystals out there, and that's what Skarner's hunting down. He's trying to find the last remaining living Brackern crystals that are stuck in some machinery somewhere.
Yep. My Here's the thing though. I feel like they're if they go the route of going with one of the earlier designs on here, like one of the more bug-like ones, I think they're just going to fully just take out the fact that
The
the
crystal
Brackern are
in
their souls are hextechs.
general. Hmm.
I think that's what they're going to do because I don't think they're capable or willing to commit to actually having a discussion about that with these characters. Because if they did want to go that route and they did this to Skarner, where he's this more machine like creature, I want them to not turn him to this revenge based character. I think it would be better, and I'm pretty sure TB Skyn has said this. If not, another YouTuber has said this. That have Seraphine save him and have them be working together to figure this out. Like she keeps Skarner and like maybe like she has money now as a pop star. She uses some of it to get like a big warehouse or whatever to keep Skarner in. And maybe when she rescued Skarner, they she got a couple of the Brackern souls too, and Skarner's guarding it while you have Seraphine, using her money and influence now to save their souls. And I would prefer that over her trying to bring Zahn and Piltover together through music. That's Sona's lore. I would just I know that's like reworking Seraphine's lore now is what we're basically saying, or at least what I'm saying. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the healthier way to go. You can keep Sona like cuz Sona's thing is the mages and like the High Lords of Demacia to come together. That's Sona's thing. I Seraphine did not need to have that. If they do it this way, the way I'm saying it, I can I can promise you more people will like it. More people will like her lore. More people will be less frustrated with the character. It still doesn't forgive the fact that Seraphine was having a skin designed first, then champion it, and
A
that's
reverse
not
engineered
well.
champion.
I mean, that's not bad in itself, but when you make the skin like expensive compared to other skins, and then
When
you
you
make a
build all,
Twitter, well, then you make
if
a
you build a
Twitter
really
with her
good
like, well, you make a Twitter of this champion skin to like talk about depression and stuff when it's not even a real person. That's like she's not a VTuber. Like a VTuber can discuss that stuff because there's still a person behind it. This is a corporation behind Seraphine. That's the issue. But
mm,
I would be fully invested in continuing Skarner's story for fixing Seraphine. And if it's not Seraphine, like we can make it Echo. We could make it like just about anybody can help. And maybe their story continues. Maybe Vi and Caitlyn find out and uh like set him free. Maybe they're not helping him, but they just set him free. Or who knows what happens.
mm.
But I don't know. What do you think, Jinx? What do you think lore wise with all that?
Uh,
Like, do you
if
think he should be
if it
revenge
had to
base?
go, nah, if it had to go with the Piltover one, I could see it being
Hi, Roy.
the tech ones. I would almost say I don't see much like to that extent of technological advancement. I don't see that really I don't want to really see that happening. I could see maybe Skarner, it does a little fixer upper here or there, and then maybe his story shifts to a more active stance with assistance on freeing the Brackern people, which would pair him nicely with Seraphine. To the point of Seraphine's goal, you know, I say goal in the idea that she was backwards written with the idea of we need a story for this character we've already made, but we've already thrown her in this area. So let's just say she's singing to make people friends. But being, if Skarner coming out and saying, hey, your civilization has shown that they're not above the ethics of using another species for their benefit, maybe it kind of builds up like the secret friendship between him and Seraphine for some other reason. Maybe she hears his song, is drawn to him, and then like generates a secret friendship between him, and she begins to be his mouth to the world of humans.
Hmm.
If he's not going to be able to step foot in a civilization that sees his kind, especially in a civilization where everything's dominated by the aristocracy. Camille commands a ton of knowledge and has eyes everywhere. The speed at which I believe Camille in the lore could find out about Skarner and stop his mission would not surprise me in the fact that that couldn't happen.
Hmm.
But if Skarner had a secret friendship with Seraphine, who, knowing the plight of his people with her gift, could be a voice into the worlds of Piltover and Zaun and become a public speaking figure, that gives her story a purpose too. Right now, she's a pop star with the idea of, I'm going to sing and it makes people friends. But other than that, she doesn't have a public speaking point in the world. Throwing Skarner into that loop and having her find a purpose to speak out besides making everyone compadres is a very nice. It's a nice step for her, as well as bringing Skarner into Piltover and Zod if he's going to continue his story.
Yes, I agree with that. That's why that's the big thing I wanted to mention with Skarner. That's the other thing too with the Skarner rework. When they were doing the voting, was I was curious what they were going to do with the lore because he has gotten. It's not his fault. It's the writer's fault for forgetting Skarner. But whenever anything involves Piltover or Zon, and it's also involving Hextech, they forget Skarner. So I would either like them to commit to either they are reworking the Brackhern, they're just not having him going to be related to Piltover in any way because they're just not Hextechs anymore, or just go all in, balls to the wall, and like commit to something like that. And I would be so down for it because not only would it, like we've said, fix another champion, but there's more they could do. There's more champions they could add from that region that are maybe siding with Skarner and Seraphine
Mm.
with
And
similar like skills. I think that would be
talking about
really cool.
talking about um, the idea of, if they don't continue Skarner's story and they redo it completely, say if he pulls out of the insect
Hmm.
designs from up above, like the two we like, looking at those designs, a very, say the top one could be a very sand type, almost like Rek'Sai, where he's half buried,
Mm-hmm.
and then the bottom one be, maybe a bit smaller but more semi-angular, beefier up front. If I if you do it, I pulled it up on mine. The interactive map of Runeterra and where things are situated around each other, it would
Oh,
make a
let
lot of
me.
sense. It might pull, albeit this might not help too much, is how cluttered the lore is and how much Riot has to do all at once. Like, as far as running the Shadow Isles, running Ionia, running Noxus, running Demacia, the Freljord, all these stories simultaneously. But the one region we haven't heard a lot of, despite knowing a lot about what's happening in that region,
Mm-hmm.
is Ixtal. If you go through the lore of Kiana, besides the fact that she's trying to prove that she's more worthy than all nine of her sisters, is she has grown to the idea of running out and doing things that are highly controversial for the fact of trying to show off.
Well, show off
And
and like if it ends up being correct in her favor, proving more that she is the one to be in charge.
if you look at her lore, it's put her in a severe point of xenophobia. She
Hmm.
attacks other regions to prove, or to try and prove something, that she might be right. And if she's doing something in Ixtal that's either affecting Shurima or affecting Piltover,
Hmm.
those insect races, like the two that we like of Skarner from the upper two rows, fit very much with the geography of, if she's committing xenophobia or genocide or something against Shurima, pull
Hmm.
the upper design of Skarner out of Shurima. If
The
she's
upper right one.
Yeah, if she's breaching into Piltover and Zaun, which is directly north of Ixtal, pull the second row's third option.
Hmm.
It looks more of a jungle version of Skarner, and that could be a sentient race of creatures living in these regions that because of her xenophobia and her, attempts to basically stop anything else from affecting her campaign to force herself to the reign of her kingdom, he could
Hmm.
be being affected by that, and he could go to these other regions for help. For like, if she's committing atrocities in the actual jungle region of Ishtar, that could
Hmm.
affect him going to Piltover and Zon looking for someone to help him. And
Yes.
that could pull more attention towards Ixtal as a region, because the only things we've pulled out of that are Kiana fighting in her own country to prove herself, and Malphite, who's remnants of an ancient void war.
Yes. The only thing is the only issue I really have with Skarner, I guess, right now is he's originally Shuriman base, right? He's supposed to be in like that's where the Bracken were from, right? Or at least
Yeah,
ones
they
we
were
know of are.
they were buried underground. I want to say on the northeastern quadrant of Shurima,
The
and it was Camille's group that went in on a mining expedition and carved out most of the crystals.
The problem I have with Skarner's location still being Shurima is the fact I think there's too many monster or monster-like champions that are Shurima base.
Mhm. And that's why I kind of like the northern Ishtal, the more jungle region one. It pulls more out of Ishtal.
I would like that. It would add another champion to Ishtal. The only thing I'll say about Skarner, like out of any of these character designs that they might go with, if they go with something similar or like it or anything, I hope to God they keep Skarner away from just being a mindless monster. Don't
Hmm.
make it where he's just this dumb idiot monster. Maybe he has some intelligence, barely speaks. Don't make him Gnar. Just
Yeah, that.
please, like he has conversations, he talks, he has great quotes to say about other champions. Because that's the thing about Skarner. He's a monster champion, but isn't a monster champion. He's a
Yeah,
monster, he's big, he's not humanoid, he looks
and
like a
I like.
monster, but he has a personality besides just monster. Because you look at Rek'Sai, she doesn't have a line or anything to say.
Hmm.
Um, um, like like there's not much else I can really say anymore about that. It's just
Yeah, and that's why I kind of like the idea of, if something was happening in Ishtal, to pull Ishtal to the center of attention for a season or two,
mhm.
because we can always do with more information from Ishtal. Because as a region, besides the fact that it used, it was like, what, wasn't it one of the original entry points for the void into this world? It's something like that. I know it
Maybe
used to
they've
be the stage
been
of a void war.
it's been changed a couple of times.
Um, but
Again, they're
definitely
working on the
the
void
idea of
stuff
it.
every time. Like we're having a
Yeah,
new void champion coming out soon for the jungle, so maybe I think it's a female void this for this one.
yeah. It it's a female void, and it, for whatever reason, out of the trailers, if you haven't seen it yet, you know, have you seen the updates they've done to Kaisa's universe page?
Not too much. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a big fan of Kaisa. Again, like if anyone listens to like TB Skyn, I'm pretty much in the same boat with him. I'm not a fan of her design overall.
Okay. I know this kind of plays away from Skarner. Uh,
Mm.
um, but go to Kaisa's universe page while I explain my thoughts on the Skarner thing real quick.
Okay,
But
one
with
second.
Skarner being a sentient race coming out of Ishtal, if he's looking for help from Piltover or Zon, or even as far as to say a coastal people from Bilgewater, for whatever reason, um, seems really out of the way though.
Is it her
Ishtal as a,
biography page or is it just her
no, the League of
universe?
Legends universe page.
Okay.
Um,
Which
Ishtal
one?
as a region is a very elemental region. And looking at other influences, in gameplay or of games in general,
Am I
what's
looking
another game?
at am I looking at the short story? But like
Is that your primary page that's up, or do you have it up on another screen?
I have it up on the screen. Oh, whoa. The background image is completely different.
Go back up to the background image.
Holy shit.
Click click on her eye or click on the butterfly. There's two different videos hidden in that background.
Oh.
Click
See,
on the eye
another
for
reason why I like League of Legends. They do stuff
um
like this.
the butterfly is the new champion side. The eye is the opposite of her side. And you'll notice something about it, about both videos.
My prophet,
Let's
your
see.
empress has
I'm gonna
arrived.
stop talking for a bit so we can focus on these.
Witness your reward. The end of everything.
Oh, that's the sundial, right? Is that supposed to be the sundial? Jinx?
Yeah, that's Shurima's sun disk.
Oh, wow.
And she speaks directly to Malzahar
Yeah.
as her prophet. Now go back to Kaisa's page and click the eye. Because notice Malzahar's okay with it. He's happy. He was
Yeah,
built as a
he's
prophet for her.
yeah.
Watch the video for the eye.
Eye of the void. Your watchers are incapable
You're going to see
of
another side of the
understanding.
void.
I am the void, and I will remake all of Runeterra.
Wait, what? Whoa, wait, I need to go back.
Eye
What does
of
she
the
say?
void. Your watchers are incapable of understanding. I am the void, and I
The Watchers are incapable of understanding.
And then her spawn is directly attacking the Watcher's void spawn.
That is interesting.
And then
Okay.
it cuts to Vel'Koz and he's wailing. Vel'Koz is not okay with that. Because if you remember
Is
Vel'Koz's lore, he doesn't directly want the world to end immediately because he is here to study it for something. It now points out there are two sides to this. Besides Kassadin and Kaisa being anti-void, there are now splits in the void.
well, from my understanding, the Void is supposed to be the Watcher's realm. It's
Yeah,
it's like the oh, what's a good comparison? It's like it's like how in like comic book hero movies and stuff, where there's the evil negative dimension. This is the thing that hates everything, wants everything destroyed. Yet it itself exists, which is kind of weird.
mhm.
But um, yeah, that would be interesting. But it again, I'm gonna hope Skarner isn't gonna be turned into a void creature. That's probably the number one thing I'm gonna ask for is
Yeah.
don't. And if you do turn it to a void creature, I would say maybe make him a void creature that wants to be really nice and actually help.
But
Because,
I figured I'd bring in
uh,
Kaisa because it it had something to do with the new Void champion and the new politics they're bringing in regarding the Void. Because
mhm,
now we are actively seeing the Void fight against itself as well. Some
mhm,
like different Void creatures are vying for control over destruction of our world. Our world being Runeterra. Yeah.
mhm.
Um, but back to Skarner. If they stuck him in Ishtal, I like the idea that since Ishtal is it's a very unknown realm. Outside of it being the fact that no one goes in there because Ishtal is just a weird place. But if you're pulling things out of this realm that is nothing but different elemental energies and very high fluxes of said energy, it is not out of the question for a large scorpion race that has never been seen before that is sentient.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're looking for help, it doesn't put them in a place of we're sentient scorpions here to beat up anyone we see. It puts him in a place, like you said, like if you wanted him to be a void creature, you want him to be a void creature that's not mindless like the rest.
Mm-hmm.
If he's an Ishtal, he could be coming out of that, maybe with the false pretense of, if you look at Zach, he's big and scary, but he wants to be nice in the old lore for him.
Yeah, I prefer the old lore, by the way. I do not like the Batman effect that they did to him. I think that was stupid and dumb, and Riot needs to get away from DC. Do not be
Um,
inspired by DC, please, in the name of God. And
but
don't
if you
even,
make
please don't
Skarner,
be inspired by the new Marvel either. Just stay away from Disney Marvel. You'll be fine.
but if you make Skarner pop out of Ishtal as this big, scary scorpion creature, and he's asking for help because something's happening to his own land, his own place,
Mm-hmm.
it shows a weaker side to this intelligent, I don't want to say beast, but creature. And it's something that you can throw other characters at as something they've never seen before. You have
Mm-hmm.
Seraphine trying to merge humans together into a life of coexistence. But what if you throw her into trying to stop Ishtal from xenophobia? What if she finds a new mission? Or even trying to find a way to get Piltover and Zahn to accept something besides just their political aristocracy and the separation of social class. Seeing a monster creature with a soft compassion and not a brute mentality show up in a world is a nice change, especially for Runeterra.
I agree. Like I said, I'd fine with. I would be down for either version, either the Ishtal version where they're all from Ishtal instead, and we're just not going to do the Hextech Crystal Soul stuff, or the continuation of the story, and I'd be fine with them being turned mechanical, only in the sense of I think there's more they could do with animations if he's mechanical.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's more. But the only issue with going mechanical Skarner is there's already something like that with Battlecast Skarner skin line.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, that's why I'm like, and that's the thing too. If you look at the top right one, I just want to say this real quick, is it almost looks like that could be the mechanical one. I would say. I think the bottom one is a little too much, little over the top, kind of silly. But that top right one could be like the claws, especially, are like.
Stick a ball like in the end of each claw, and there you go. You've got wheels that help pull him. Boom.
Yeah, like
That's
he's got like
mechanical.
some wheels and stuff that like maybe they spin for that little move speed or whatever if they're gonna keep an ability like that. Which that's a good segue. Let's talk about abilities. We've talked about the design, which ones we've liked that we've seen so far, what we don't want. We've talked about the lore, what we would like, what we don't want. Um, let's talk about abilities. Let's talk about like current Skarner. Um, let's just I say we just go in order. Let's go with the passive. I'm not a fan of it. I do not like current Skarner's passive. I'd be 100% okay if it was erased and we don't have it.
I like the. I don't like the passive in its implementation of sticking crystals around the map. However, if he were to keep a crystalline influence, I like the idea of him powering up around crystal. That part of his current passive I do like. but I don't like its implementation in gameplay right now.
Okay.
Because, as you've said, you like him as a tank in top lane.
I like
His
him as a
current
tank, and
state does nothing for you.
current passive doesn't do anything for his tank stats. It's more along for his auto attack, so he hits more. It gives him some more move speed. I'm just saying its current state. I'm not a fan of the passive. The fact that the whole the fact that his passive doesn't exist if he's not near a crystal is really annoying to me.
Hmm.
Because of the fact, like you said, like you don't really get to like it's limiting because you don't get to choose where these crystals are. You're stuck to these crystals being in fixed locations on the map, and if you're not fighting there, you're screwed. And it's not even that you have to fight there; you also have to control it.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that. I would prefer it if he can either place the crystals somewhere and the enemies can, like Rek'Sai, walk over, destroy it, get some gold out of it, and just let it be that. So Skarner can put it down in the middle of a team fight. I would say when he puts it down, um, then there's like some sort of delay before the crystal activates, so he doesn't get an immediate effect in the middle of a team fight.
Hmm.
But since he would be a tank, if we went the tank direction, um, that's what would happen. And I guess before we continue, like I already said, I want him to be a tank. I guess for roles, I'm looking at a top laner jungler. I want him to be both, kind of like how Sejuani is being able to be both right now, which makes me super happy. Another champion I really love playing. Same with Zach is being able to be played in top. Awesome. What do you prefer seeing out of Skarner? Do you want him a tank? Do you want him a juggernaut? Do you want him a fighter?
I very much want to see him. I like the idea, even looking at the designs we've seen, like
Mm-hmm.
it, looking at both of those designs, I really like the aesthetic of Skarner if he's here and he's going to be in your face and tank your hits. It's not like, I don't always expect a Skarner to walk in and, smack me for half my health bar like a bruiser might, while
Mm-hmm.
also running around really fast. I like the idea of a scorpion that's going to get up in my face and he's going to make me wish I wasn't in his face. And no matter what I do, he's going to continue to stand there until I either run away or we duke it out for 10 minutes and either I get help and we kill him,
Either you're
or he's
playing
going to sit
a
there.
champion that's designed to deal with tanks or has a build for tanks, or
Yeah,
you don't and you need help.
because like you walk into a lane against, Set, for example. Sure, having a build against tanks helps a little bit against Set, but that's not his build. His build isn't to sit here and let you whittle away at him for 20 years. It's, I'm going to be in your face for all of about 10 seconds, but I
Yeah.
want you to hurt me. He's
Mm-hmm.
relying on picking a fight with you and getting hurt while doing it. Skarner, I want him to feel like he's going to walk into the lane and almost with the same idea as Maokai. People are going to hit you. Yeah. What about it? If
Mm-hmm.
it's not like a vein rolling around doing chunks of damage to me through whatever defenses I build, why should I care if I get hit with a stray basic attack every now and then? I'm a big, you know, heavy duty armored scorpion.
I agree. I I think that should be his playstyle is the I'm in there for a while playstyle, and that's why I think he'd be really welcoming in top lane because top lane could use more tanks. If I'm going to be honest, a lot of them has left,
Yeah, it's a
and a
lot
lot of
of
assassins have come
bruiser
in
or
place.
marksman. Yeah.
And there's not really a tank that's designed to deal with assassins currently. The upcoming patch is going to fix that. Hopefully, burst meta going away, tanks might be a bit tankier, but it's the fact that assassins have so much mobility, armor pen, and even if it's not an assassin, there's just plenty of ranged champions or melee champions that can just go armor shred or percentage health damage with Bork and just shred them. So I think a in your face fighting tank that maybe is not like CC heavy like an Ornn or a Maokai, but is more like they're just designed around actually just absorbing and taking damage. Not necessarily maybe being able to turn that into more damage like Set, but their job is to be in there, soak up hits. I
Hmm.
think is a really cool design. And now that I say that, I'm kind of liking. I'm really liking the last three of the first two rows a lot. I'm just really liking both those designs. That just is like that looks good. They both look really, really fucking good.
Hmm.
I like them. Do you think he should just be a jungler, or would you like to see him atop?
Uh,
Or
I kind of in the same line as, um, I mean, as controversial as an idea as it is, Urgot. Urgot is a very stereotypical. He's not your usual bruiser because he is a ranged, but he's top. But he can be done jungle. But he's a very beefy character. I want Skarner to
mm-hmm.
be like that. I want him to be top primarily. He's gonna be up there. He's gonna beefcake around. He's gonna punch stuff. But I want him to be able to thrive in the jungle. I I don't want it to be a struggle bus to get around.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want him to be one of those champions that gets one role in the game and can't
Yes.
do anything else.
I am 100% in that boat. Like I said earlier, I've at the beginning near or at least equivalent I can't say the word. Uh
Equivocal.
Equivocal, yeah. But at near the start, whatever. Uh I said that I like playing champions in off roles, like Fiddlesticks middle, Soraka and Barden mid, and I'll even play junglers in top lane.
Hmm.
I'm a person that believes wholeheartedly a champion should not be designed to be played in only one role. I
Like
think they
look at
should be designed to main a role. I think that's where they should be doing the best, but I don't think they should be unable to be played in other lanes.
I think my like one of my favorite champions that is a very good example of that and where it's crippling him is Kled.
Hmm.
Kled does not fit super well into mid lane because it's a lot of mobile assassins that can just break out of his
Well,
hook range.
it's funny you mention that. He's actually he's doing okay in mid lane in certain ranks. Um, I think the better one to look at is I think we like I think a better one to look at is like Maokai. He's not in top lane anymore.
Yeah, and
He's a support. And
yeah,
it's not because he's not able to do enough damage. It's just the fact that his mana is too high for cost and he's just mostly a CC bot. So
in like seeing it in combat, if your opponent's dumb enough, like I've been, to sit there for 5 years and duel your Maokai while he just sustains, sure, you might be able to win the fight. But if your opponent's any kind of smart, besides your CC, you don't have an endless supply of fighting power. Like you said, your mana cost is too high for the amount of threat and damage you're able to deal.
correct.
You can hurt and you can live for a long time with a built-in grasp passive and grasp of the undying.
Yep, and like yeah, you
Besides,
can
you're not
fix your
going to catch a lot of.
mana. You can technically fix your mana with the few mana items that are in the game, but at the same time, One of the main items is restricted to armor, so you have to be fighting against somebody that deals primarily physical damage. Uh, but it's also the fact too that like for the amount of mana you are spending for the ability is usually not enough. And that's why he's in support lane because he doesn't need to deal a lot of damage with his mana. He just needs that CC, which is point and click.
Mm-hmm.
And unlike Pantheon, he can tank quite a few hits.
Yeah.
But and that's why with Skarner, I primarily say I would love to see him in top lane. Oh, I hate to say why I prefer top being his main role over jungler, and you can say it's bias that I'm just because I'm a top lane person, I'm not much of a jungle fan. At least with current Skarner, there's nothing he does better than any of the other junglers at the moment. You want to
Mm.
play a tank that can engage on the enemy,
Played
Zac or Mumu. Like,
even to
no,
that extent, if you want the CC that Skarner has paired with an engage, something like that, while still being beefy and hard to catch. Other than Zach, played. Shoot, you said the name like several times and I can't think of it.
Sejuani
Yeah. Sejuani.
plays Sejuani. Um, and if you're just like, I want to play a monster champion with a lot that can get on enemies, Rek'Sai, even though I'm not a big fan of the fact that she's only played in pro play right now, I think it's another
I
champion we can discuss later.
I really like Rek'Sai. I just don't like her engage. It's very weird.
Again,
It
that's a champion we can talk about
Yeah.
another time. But like they're like junglers, even though there's not that many of them and they're rarely ever made. Like we are getting a new one that's coming up here. The problem is junglers is they have basically like three specific types of junglers. You have the clear jungler. These are the junglers like they can clear super fast, so they can out XP the enemy jungler as long as your team's able to play safe and not get ganked. There's the
Yeah, and
gank
then
based jungler where their clear might not be the fastest or the greatest, but they have one of the strongest ganks early on and to get your team an immediate kill lead. Like
yeah.
for like if we're gonna like for that first example, Diana is one of the fastest in clearing, same with Shyvana, but they have no CC in their kit or immediate dashing to get on top of the enemy that they have to rely on their laner on their team to provide the CC for the gank.
Yeah,
So it's
nothing
better
like
for
they're
them
really
to
good clear, but they're not that threatening pre-6.
correct. They're not that threatening pre-6 and they're just going to power farm because they have really good clear speed. But if we go
Mm.
to go by gank base, let's Nunu and Willem, for example. As
Nunu
soon as they're
Willow,
level 2,
Amumu,
they're ganking
uh,
mid because they have one of the strongest ganks out there. Hecarim's going to gank because of his move speed. Rammus can gank. Amumu can gank.
yeah, Amumu
Zac
can
can
gank,
gank.
Zac can gank. As unmeta as a pick as it is, Leona is a very strong level 2 gank.
Yes,
Um, these people who get on top of someone and they hold them down and they just can't get out.
correct.
If an Amumu hits you, you're rooted for the entire duration that he pulls himself to you. And doesn't it stun you shortly afterwards too? For
Um,
like a fraction of a second? Or is it just the duration he's pulling?
I'm not sure actually.
But
Um,
Zac comes out of the middle of nowhere
oh yes,
and knocks
Zac
you off.
is currently the best tank jungler. Not only does
Mm,
he not rely on mana, all of his CC is knockup. Like it doesn't matter how much tenacity or if they get Merc treads, it doesn't matter. It's knockup. Knockup is not something that can be reduced. It's just the best form of CC, and they can't get like a Quicksilver Sash. It's knockup. You can't cleanse that.
isn't there one item in the game that can clear knockup?
Nope.
Or is there nothing that clears it?
There's nothing that can clear a knockup. But that's because very few champions have the knockup. There's Yasuo Tornado. I believe there's a very tiny window, extremely tiny, where you can technically avoid some of it, but like it's so insanely hard to like do. It's not even worthwhile. They're trying to like master that.
Yeah, because I know there's Yasuo, Malphite,
Zach.
um, Zac, Poppy, technically. Although if you
Well,
miss any kind of timing on the knockup, they're like 8 miles away now.
yes. There's plenty of champions with some knockback, but sometimes those aren't classified with knockup. It's weird
Mm,
how League classifies things. But Skarner, currently how he is with jungle, he has to rely on a bunch of runes and items that give him move speed, because his only way to gank is a tiny little burst of move speed in his kit. And then
yeah,
he
and then
has to throw his slow out, which is then a stun if he autos it. But his ultimate is they're immobilized. I could drag him back. They can cleanse it if they get cleanse, and then Skarner can't do anything. The moment
yeah,
anything in his kit is cleansed, he cannot do a thing. And that's like the number one counter to him is if the entire team instead of Flash just got cleanse, Skarner can't gank. Like he has to
hmm
like repeatedly show up in one lane and basically camp it.
or for instance, if the enemy bot lane is picking up, the one champion that screws over a Skarner in most of the game, Morgana.
Morgana.
What's the one thing you do when you see a Skarner running as fast as he possibly can out of your jungle towards your ADC? You put a spell shield on him.
Yep,
And because Skarner doesn't deal magic damage, he can't clear the shield on his own.
correct. Then there's plenty of others too. There's plenty of like CC is a big weakness for Skarner. He has no way of dealing with a heavy CC comp because he's reliant on auto attacking enemies he's affected with his slows and his ult. So
Hmm.
I guess we can keep going and let's talk about the one thing we really haven't mentioned so far, surprisingly, his Q. It's a auto reset ish ability that deals damage around him and then it empowers the next use of the Q. It's his basically his Sheen ability, if we're gonna like say anything about it. Because he was originally designed to be a juggernaut. He was designed to use like Triforce.
Hmm.
And I think that's a good option to still have on him if they were going to keep that, because it is a way to deal with tanks. And if you want to build more of a juggernaut build than a tank build, I personally, though, am not a fan of the ability currently because not only does it not scale well, it just visually doesn't feel like it does anything.
Hmm.
It's like,
Like,
oh, cool particle effects, but I don't feel like I'm dealing a lot of damage or doing anything.
yeah. And even then, like you said, it scales not very well. It's entirely, it's most of its identity is around the fact that as long as you keep mashing the button against someone who can't kill you in 10 seconds, you're going to get at least a minimum of maybe 20% max HP off
Yep,
in 10 to 15 seconds. When you run in a lane, get hit by a Morgana Q because you have no CC immunity or ways to dodge it, and you get basic attacked 3 times and you've lost the same amount of HP as 15 seconds of an ability.
correct. So I'd say I'd be fine with the queue going away if they were as an improvised version of it. All I would ask is make it like I want to notice I'm doing something with that ability. I don't care if
Mm,
the cooldown has to go up. I don't care. I don't care if like it's not going to work as well with Sheen builds. Just on its own, I would like that ability to visually be telling me I'm doing something impressive. Because like Darius Q, for example, big hefty swing, get a big chunk of heal. Garen Q, move speed, hit really hard. There's a nice visual cue to go with it. Like there are
Hmm.
champions with like simple abilities, like concept wise, but with like impactful looking of like skills. Heck, Amumu throwing his bandage out sounds like just a whoosh sound, but you get the high movement that comes from it. Like you immediately go to the thing that you hooked with your
Hmm.
bandage. It's like that's really impressive. Like I like some sort of like because that's the thing with a lot of champions. The Q is usually the skill you're maxing first on almost every champion. There's there are a few that you don't do that, and Nivea is one of them. But you're like always maxing your Q, and the Q being the most like used ability or your most impactful one you're using, not feeling impactful, I think is a that's wrong.
Yeah. Um, at whatever point you want me to, I have most of this idea for a bruiser tank, um, like ability set written out. Of course, it's
Mm.
only basic ideas for it. It's not
We
like
can we
any direct
can
numbers.
we can talk about it. We can speed up a little bit here. The W, his little move speed shield. What do you think?
Mm,
I I
I
kind
like it being a shield, especially if he's going to be a tank, but I
yes.
don't think it needs to have that speed boost built into it initially. It, for example, my like little list of abilities here, because I kind of
Mhm.
prefabbed out the idea for an entire move set and passive.
Mhm.
Every one of his abilities plays off the idea that your engage or ranged poke ability fits kind of in the idea of, I'm trying to think of someone who has one. It's an ability that goes through minions but stops on someone, like Kled, for example.
Mhm.
It'll stop on the first person hit, but it's this little poke you can do, to give Skarner a little bit of chance against someone who's ranged. He can
Mhm.
shoot something, but I
I
built
think
most of this kit around the idea of Skarner kept his crystal form, and shooting out this projectile would mark the target with like a crystal shard, which
mhm.
would affect his passive and his other abilities.
Mhm. All right. I
Um,
mean, I can see something like that, but like, I'm just quickly touch on this because I would like that's actually a good way to thing to talk about with the next ability. But I'll say like I don't care about the move speed part of it. I like the shield. I wish you did more than just do move speed and shield. I would say if they kept that ability, remove the move speed, amplify either the shield a bit more or he gets another effect from it. But like that would be it. And I like the fact that shield bash is a really good rune to work with it. So maybe something along there. Maybe it's a really weak shield but very low cooldown, so you can proc it a lot for shield bash. That would be cool.
mm,
His E is his projectile ability, and I think it's the ability I like the most on Skarner. It used to be when you fired it, it's a projectile that marks enemies, slowing them, but the projectile would go slower per enemy. Now it doesn't. It keeps the speed consistently while still slowing everybody. And if you auto attack them, they are stunned and it lowers the cooldown of the E. I like that skill. I like the fact it's a slow and then and it's not a stun, it's not an immediate effect, but um you can then if you're then able to catch up to them after you've slowed them and you auto them, it's another CC like effect.
mhm.
And it's like that I think is it's rewarding, it's fun, and the damage is not terrible. It's not that
No,
amazing, it's not that
as
great.
as a laner, like in the current
Mm-hmm.
Skarner idea, as a laner, having that little interaction where hitting something does a like micro stun but crystallizes them for a second, it's a
Mm-hmm.
nice little feel good thing because if you do it right as a Skarner, that's a lot of mana regen off of a single ability. Because if you hit,
Mm-hmm.
like, say, 4 out of 6 of a minion wave and you walk through and you hit each one,
Yep.
that buys you at least a second of 1% missing mana regen per one you hit.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
the
nice
fact
little
that
sustain.
I would say it's probably one of the most cost efficient abilities for mana in the game because of the fact of like on its own it's not much, it's just a slow, but if you combine the autos and then you can get multiple resets off of it, if you hit a whole wave is really nice. It's basically if you're playing him top, you max that ability first because that's your wave clear tool and your poke, and you need it on lower cooldown. But I like the E. I would say if I have one ability out of everything, we haven't discussed the alt yet, but I would say this is the one I would want them to keep the most. I think that's the most like fair skill in the game. It's still a skill shot. It's thin. It's not the fastest projectile, but if he hits it and he can hit multiple people, he can get multiple stuns off. Not instantly back to back, like not like an Amumu ult where you can just ult the whole enemy team if they happen to be there. But like it's that whole I'm gonna hit you, move on to the next one, hit them, move on to the next one, hit them. It's that tank aspect of I'm trying to aggro all of you. I'm going to all of you. I'm not just sticking to just that one right now for the middle of a team fight. I need to be in the team fight.
Hmm.
That's the ability I like the most. Your opinions on his E, his third ability?
I really like it. It even going as far as, if that's your first skill you're maxing, the amount of safety that buys Skarner, even without his shield and speed boost, it's a very nice safe ability. Because if someone's chasing you, you shoot it behind you, and they're heavily slowed. And if for whatever reason they keep trying to push towards you, you just turn around and smack them once and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
It really makes people rethink how they're going to engage.
Hello, hello, Killa Swift. Yep, things are going good so far. Having fun discussing things. And then I guess last but not least, so would you say that is this your favorite ability out of all of them so far, or?
Mm, yeah, it it's one that I frequently undervalue during my match, but
Mm-hmm.
that's because I play Skarner more as a jungler than
Mm-hmm.
a lane one. So
That's
I
fair.
play around a lot more of the basic attacks resetting the cooldown of Q.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Then auto attacking a stun target resetting. That's the thing that I guess we could like mini touch up. Skarner has a lot of stuff in his kit that's about low cooldown, even though well lowering his cooldown. Either his Q is just a really low cooldown ability he can spam, or he can lower the cooldown off of his E so he can use it more. But there's like
and that's
nothing
something
in.
I really like that in the set that I've made. The abilities work very well for being lower cooldown abilities.
Mhm. But last but not least, the ultimate, his iconic I grab you and I take you to where I want you.
Hmm.
I think it's a very fun ability. I think it's a very ineffective ability.
I
The
For the idea of Skarner that they wanted, where he's a bruiser who beats you up like by himself, like he's here to be in your face and beat you up. The ultimate is very much in a weak spot where it is. But if you reimagine him as a tank, I know I'm going to keep going back to this because I'm excited to just read you off these
I
descriptions.
know, I know.
But I rewrote the ultimate to play him more in a tank role. It still plays very much like his current ultimate, where he grabs someone and moves them,
Mhm.
but I built it with the idea of being a tank, where your goal is not to grab someone and kill them yourself. Your goal is to grab someone and put them somewhere they don't want to be so that your team can capitalize on it.
Okay, that sounds interesting. The thing I was gonna say before we move on, and you can talk about your whole thing that you're just dying to wait, like really get into. Um, I do not the part about Skarner's ult. that I really don't like is the fact that who are you grabbing with that ultimate by like team fights? And let's say you're doing a team fight, not necessarily like in the like let's just say you're doing it and the enemy is not out of position, right? The squishies are in the back, able to poke, or the assassins are getting ready to go in and dive. What's Skarner's role with the ult? Is it to peel for his team with the ult to just grab somebody else? Because it's not grabbing a backline tool. Skarner currently has no way of getting into the backline besides just a ton of move speed. But he has no cleanse, he has no CC immunity, and he has no like major mobility.
It,
So it's an
he's,
ultimate that only benefits you in the sense of grabbing people who are mispositioning and or is already affected by another CC ability to extend the duration and bring them to somebody who can get the kill. Because the thing is, when you use that ability, you're locked. You can't cast your other skills
other than Q,
other than Q,
which for the duration of your ult is what, maybe 2 Qs?
maybe 2 Qs. If you somehow go max cooldown and you are perfectly timing able to press that Q button, you could get 3.
Hmm. The
But
only other option I
that's
see for the ultimate, which directly plays against the idea of Skarner being a bruiser, because when
mhm.
you think bruiser, you mean like he's either up beating up the tanks, like
A
trying to force them
bruiser.
to focus on them, or he's running right past the tanks and being a beefcake, basically muscle walling it right to their carry.
See, when I go by classifications, I've played Smite way longer than League. I've been enjoying League more. I've kind of stopped playing Smite. I plan to maybe come back to it. Um, is when I say bruiser, I mean somebody who they build like maybe 1 or 2 damage items. The rest is all tank. So they're not pure tank in the sense of what they're like take Nasus for example. He builds Divine Sunder, everything else is tank. Everything else is
Yeah.
tank. I would not call Nasus a tank though. I would call him a bruiser. He does a lot of damage and he's trying to stay in a fight for a long period of time. A
Hmm.
tank, in my opinion, is they're trying to do stay in a fight for a long time, but they don't have a lot of damage. All their damage is going to come from how long can they get the fight going and how well are they able to use their abilities and timing it. Because I don't agree with a lot of league players saying that tanks should not do any kind of damage. They're
It's
not
like look
supposed to
at
get kills, which I think then that you're just making them a support champ or
yeah,
like
like look at the idea of Zack's. Want to say it's the W, the little AOE burst,
yes, that's his W.
versus Skarner's Q. Zack's is a longer range, and Zack is built for being a tank. His whole goal in a fight, besides being in there and knocking everyone around and messing up the fight and pulling people out of position, is to be in the fight as long as he can, so he can just keep hitting that button off of cooldown.
Yep, but that's because he's also trying to like he's got his own mini game. He's passing, he's making more goose spots to go heal.
Yeah.
And like that's really cool. That's really interesting. I I I like Skarner as a tank over just a fighter or a bruiser. Just like for at least when we're talking about what new abilities we would want, I'd want him to be more leaning towards bruiser or juggernaut like Nasus, where he maybe just buys a Sheen item and the rest
Hmm.
tank. Because I like the idea of a champion, because there's not really much like it. It's really just like Nasus and like what's another champion that just buys 1 damage item and the rest is all tank.
Um, I mean, personally, on my end, I've run Urgot like that. You buy 1 or 2 damage items, and your legs do most of the work late game.
Yeah, but you
Unless your goal is to stay alive.
mm-hmm. Like 'cause,
Um,
once your higher cooldowns and stuff, your shotgun user all
yeah,
your damage. But like with Nasus, his whole thing is his Q. Um,
Yeah, your goal is to get
auto
to late
reset.
game where you have the HP and the built-in ability scaling
Hmm.
of your Q that you don't need the damage items anymore. You need to be in the
Hmm.
fight to get a Q off every 3 seconds because that's going to hit someone for, you know, megatons of damage the longer you can stay there.
Yep.
One Q might do maybe 300 damage, but on a 3 second cooldown, if someone can't handle you walking after them while they're slowed 99%, while you're whacking down on them every 3 seconds or standing under a turret, hitting the turret
Hmm.
for 500 damage every 3 seconds, Nasus is really suffering.
Yep. And I'm a person that believes tanks should be stronger the later a game goes rather than they should be stronger early. Because League of Legends stats, if anybody knows anything about tank stats actually fall off compared to damage stats.
Mhm.
Tank items don't provide nearly as much tankiness as how much damage items provide,
I mean,
especially if we're
even look at
talking gold value per stat.
well, like even look at say you build, Malphite, super heavy AD, negator.
Hmm.
Early game, he's really strong. He's got a built-in very high armor. He scales off of armor, so obviously you're rushing that. And a built-in HP shield that blocks both physical and magical damage. That's really good early game. That's a very strong passive early game. But the moment the enemy ADC builds Titan Slayer, Blade of the Ruined King, um, I'm trying to think of the 35% armor pen that deals more damage the more HP you have than them.
Oh, Lord Doms.
Yeah, or Doms. The moment
Or
the
if they're
ADCs get enough money
Ezreal,
to get those,
or if they're Ezreal, I can just grab a Divine Sunder.
yeah. The moment they start picking up a couple of these items, the amount of HP or the amount of armor you get from your tank items is a fraction of what it used to be. Especially
Hmm.
if you're, say, fighting a Jinx. You can be a Malphite all you want, but when a Jinx has built-in attack speed, a Titan Slayer, and maybe a Blade of the Ruined King giving her some lifesteal and current HP reduction, what do? You might be able to slow her down or knock her up or hit her or something and
Yeah,
hope
but a
you can
tank
burst her. But if you
is
built
going
tank,
to
you're not gonna live.
if you didn't somehow snowball. If you didn't snowball with playing as a tank and you're just dead even with everybody else, you're actually behind. Everybody else
Um,
is able to beat you in a 1v1. And I'm like, for some tanks, I think that's fair. I think some of them, if they're like massive CC based and they're designed just for disrupting fights, not to win fights, sure. Maybe they shouldn't never win a 1v1 against any champion. But if like going into like Skarner here as a tank that wants to be in the fight, I don't want him to be a tank that falls off.
mhm.
I am a person that's really not a fan of champions that fall off early on just because there's more ways a game can go wrong than it can go right, and you falling behind and playing a champion that's bad for that is just it's the worst feeling in the game. Like,
And I mean,
no
if
matter
when I
what
look
you
at
do, you're not coming back.
Skarner, like, and I imagine him as a tank. Say maybe you just go full tank. You're
Mhm.
not building Bruiser, even though the ideal thing is to probably go like a Sheen item and then go, full tank if you want to be a tank Skarner, because then you still have some damage. Um, the issue with Skarner being if you're not using your ultimate to CC someone as a tank, the rest of your kit is I hit them with my E from, maximum range. My goal is now to walk up to that person and hit them. Except
Mhm.
as Skarner, with very little in the way of engaging someone, walking forward to basic attack someone puts you in severe harm's way of getting counter CC.
Yep.
And so, say you take a step back and you go, okay, my idea is going to be counter engage. Like, say if you're not flashing in and grabbing their ADC to pull them past their backline to make them vulnerable,
Hmm.
what's the rest of Skarner's kit going to do for you?
Yeah, you gonna
Say
are you
say they
pulling
have,
the enemy Maokai into your team? Are you pulling the Galio into your team? Like what?
or at that point, does Skarner fall so far out of being able to be a tank safely that you turn into that kind of tank that sits back and by your walks on the outer edge of the fight and waits for a Rengar to pop out of the jungle just so you can ult him before he gets his combo off?
Or you just play him as a backline peeler? Like you
Yeah.
can't engage. Your job is to disengage. And at that point, if your job is to just disengage and you can't
What
do
are you
anything
contrib-
else, you're
What are
no
you
longer
contributing at
reliant
this
on what your team can do. You're reliant on, can the enemy team do things that I can, like we're 100% reliant on what the enemy team plays,
Yeah.
what their positioning still is. And
Like a good
Skarner is just like Skarner's a person that it definitely feels like he's definitely a person that can win a lot of fights 1v1 in the jungle. I played Skarner a bunch to know that. Like Skarner is a very powerful 1v1 fighter when he's in his crystal zones. But the moment team fights happen, if the team's not coordinating like perfectly or like enough for how your E marks, your ult works, you're completely useless as a tank, or even as a fighter. Your kit's just not designed for it. So for let's hear it, Jinx. Let's hear what your idea would be to fix all this, or what his new role would be, or whatever. Let's hear it
All
all.
right. Starting from the passive. Yeah, and I guess I'll give myself a little preface here. This is with the idea that he's still built around crystals and energy.
Yes, and we're not saying that like this is like we're not trying to make this as broken as possible. We're not again, we're not in like high elo. In my opinion, high elo is a completely different League of Legends than casual play, and I think casual play is 100% the most played and most enjoyed way of League of Legends.
Mhm. I Looking at this is something that not looking at this like, oh, he could do this and then that, and there's no counterplay. Looking at this is stuff I thought of in 30 minutes. That if this is what Skarner's set would like it was,
Mm-hmm.
I would feel pretty nice. It. I feel like there's a little bit of fun to this, and none of it feels too overwhelming. He
Mm-hmm.
has combos that he can do, like for instance, Karma. You don't expect to go into a fight as Karma and cue someone on the other side of minions, not
Mm-hmm.
without walking all the way around them. But if you're a decent Karma player, there's a bit of fun in ulting right before you throw out your Q and trying to hook it past the minions and hope the side range of the forced explosion might hit someone. There's a little bit of fun to playing with the combination of abilities. Um, Playing with the idea of him being a tank bruiser, less so than I'm gonna run out and be an assassin on someone or flash in, grab someone, and that's it. Starting with the passive, the actual passive part of it, which I feel works really well for a beast made of crystal, is a light ramping of tenacity, like a built-in tenacity for him. You don't see that on a lot of champions. It barely any, I think. So even if it's something small, like maybe uh 5 to at most, I would say maybe a 15 between levels 1 to 18%
Mm-hmm.
tenacity, it gives him more of a feel of if I'm going to be a tank in your face, I want to get out of things and stay in your face. I want to be there to soak up the skill shots.
Mm-hmm.
There's another part to this passive, but it's going to play off of one of his later abilities, which I'll start with that one because then I can go over the other effects with the other abilities.
Sure.
And that would be his E, which I've listed as kind of his engage or his poke ability,
Mm-hmm.
his long range poke. It basically have the same kind of animation as it has now. He fires out a projectile, it pierces through minions and hits champions. But instead of slowing off the bat, I would say it just hits someone and does damage and plants maybe like a spike in them or a shard of crystal. That might be the first part of his engage or his poke. It doesn't have a slow built in of itself, but maybe it can do a bit more damage, so on. A decently moderate cooldown, nothing too long, but nothing to where he's putting a shard in you every 3 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Unless he's built for that, which you do you. I've seen weirder. um,
Yeah.
Going from that with the idea that that shard in someone amplifies any of his other abilities. Going to his Q, I want this to stay as a, I put this in parentheses, a spam ability. I want this to be his bread and butter. Like if he goes Sunder, I want this to be his ability. He uses it, then follows it up with a basic. It's a few seconds, uses it, follows up with a basic, so on. And I went over this with you last time, but the idea of putting Skarner's claws to use. For example, it works with either of the two designs we looked at, the third one in the top two rows. Those are big, meaty claws.
Oh,
Insert the
definitely.
SpongeBob joke here, the big, meaty claws.
Big, meaty claws. Yep.
But I
SpongeBob
like
memes are
the idea
amazing.
of maybe a grand total of a 20-degree arc in front of him, or a 120-degree arc in front of him, where he takes his claws and he like maybe reels them back a little bit and then
Mm-hmm.
smacks them together in front of him. This
Okay.
gives this gives like a short. I'm trying to think of an overlap here. Maybe make it 80 degrees on either side. So each one starts from the edge of the 120 degree zone,
Mm-hmm.
and the first 40 degrees of each side, he only hits with that claw. Maybe he does a little bit of damage. It's kind of just something since he can't sidestep and dodge the entire ability entirely,
Mm-hmm.
but he's going to do less damage if he hits you with just one claw. But if you're in the overlap of 40 degrees in the center, you'll get hit with basically he knuckle bounces you between two claws.
Mm-hmm.
It'll do more damage if you're in that extra zone. I've seen that in a couple other games. Fiddlesticks, I think, has that for his, where if you're in that little sweet zone, you take a bit more damage on his Q, or not his Q, his W, the long range swipe.
Yep.
I kind of like the idea of there being a little bit of, you know, thought to what direction do I aim this little knuckle bounce? Do I want to, catch someone with just one claw just as a spam? Or do I want to focus on trying to hit them with the center every time? It's something fun than just slamming the Q button every 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And if the target has a shard in them, maybe if you hit them with the center of the thing, you could stun them if you wanted to go too far. You could hit them with the sweet spot with a crystal and it stuns them. Or it bursts, doing a little blast of damage behind the target, which gives him a reason to be a frontliner. You hit a tank with a shard and then smash it, you're going to spray their backline.
Kind of like I like that. It's kind of like a Lysandra Q,
Yeah. Your
but
first target takes damage or at least breaks the shard and it spews out behind them.
I like that. I like that a
Uh,
lot.
The
I mean,
W,
I like Lysandra, so I mean,
yeah,
bit bias.
but I like the idea of giving Skarner through most of this build the idea of standing in the front with his built-in tenacity and
Mhm.
size and being there with the ability to kind of harass the backline while directly confronting and face tanking the tanks.
Okay.
Um, his W, I took a little bit of influence from J4 since I've been playing him kind of recently
Mhm.
in the idea that I still want it to be a shield, but I don't want it to be like J4 shield where he pops it and it gives him more power the more enemies there are. As cool as that would be, that's Jarvan's thing now. Jump in the middle of the fight, pop a shield based on how many people are there. But
Mhm.
I like the idea, and it could work with an animation if he's still crystal, to slow enemies around you. That's something I don't quite understand on Jarvan's shield. That makes sense for Skarner. If he maybe when he pulsed his shield, he rapidly grew crystals on the ground around him, and it slows people down for a few seconds.
Mhm.
If they have a shard in them, then I would give it the idea of he gains a bit more shield, and it might give him a small speed boost. So if you're ganking out of jungle and you hit someone with a shard, you pop that shield, you slow them down, and you boost yourself to them.
Oh, okay. So that's the speed boost compensation from his old kit.
That's the compensation for the speed boost is if you consume a shard for it. And if you're playing that in lane and you hit someone and that's how you want to open your engage, you have bonus shield to get you to the target before you start taking damage.
Okay. All right.
Um and then before I go to the ultimate, I'll go over that other part of the passive since we've been talking about consuming shards. I
Mhm.
gave it the consuming shards with your other abilities, whether it be your Q, your W, or even your ultimate,
Mhm.
will heal Skarner by a small amount. As
Okay.
in, if it was still crystalline, it's like you breaking the crystal and absorbing the energy that breaks out of it.
Okay.
And then the ultimate, I kind of like the grab, but as I was saying earlier, I like it not for the fact that you grab someone and move them with the intention to kill. You grab
Mhm.
someone and move them with the intention of making them vulnerable for your team to kill.
Mhm.
Because it silences all but one ability. And so with the ultimate, unupgraded from the shard, you basically grab someone in front of you with your claws rather than your tail, and it holds them in front of you, like the ability does now, but that leaves them in the sweet spot for your Q. So while you're holding someone, Skarner can still output some damage because you're holding them in the zone of bonus damage from your Q.
Okay.
You're still only going to get maybe one, maybe two Qs off, but it's a nice little added bonus because you're thwacking someone right in front of you. It's a feel good thing if you can't hit your Qs.
Okay.
Um, and while you're pulling someone, I didn't like the fact that it's entirely built for stun. I mean, albeit it'll feel like it could use some fine tuning, especially if you're fighting a set and he decides to face breaker you right as you're doing this. But I wanted the basic ultimate to ground your target as you
Okay.
drag. Um, and then if you've hit them with a shard before you've ulted them, it makes the target more vulnerable to damage and fully stuns them for the duration.
Okay.
So, say you hit them with a shard, then flash in and ult them, you'll stun them so they can't fight back during the duration or shield themselves
Mhm.
as you're moving them, but you might also make them 20% more vulnerable to damage while they're being dragged. So if you flash in and grab the ADC, they can't keep basic attacking people, but your team now kills them faster. They can more easily capitalize on the person you've grabbed before they break out of your ult and then flash to safety again.
Okay.
And heal yourself if they have a shard in them.
Yeah, a
You know, like a tank does.
high sustain mechanic based tank. That sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah. It feels like a very fun playstyle where you don't have to capitalize on his shard, but you're very clearly getting a bonus if you do, and there's reasons to use different abilities to trigger it.
Mm-hmm. I like it. Um, I'll have to
And the
see what other
tenacity per level
people
new thing.
say. Was there any runes in particular you think that you came up with this to kind of work with, or?
Um, being a tank with the built-in tenacity, I very much like the. Let me pull up the rune pages real quick so I can read while I talk.
Mm-hmm.
um, if you're going top and you're just playing like a bruiser tank, Grasp of the Undying is a very nice one. It's very nice for most tanks who intend to just punch people once every few seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Otherwise, if you're really playing around your ultimate, Aftershock is not a bad one. If you're intending to play this more as a I grab someone for my team and then get out of there alive,
Mm-hmm.
Aftershock is not bad. Shield
Okay.
Bash is still very much what I would prefer if you're trying to play more for yourself.
Would you
Well,
say with your idea, he might not need predator shoes anymore, or do you think that might still be a
Predators, if you're playing him in
must-have?
jungle, Predator shoes would still probably be very much appreciated
Thank you, Tuna.
because he's been messaging me too.
Oh, that's nice.
Um, but like if you're running Predator, that'll get you into lane fast enough to hit with your shard, and then
Mm-hmm.
maybe followed up with an ult instead of walking in and just sharding and shielding to get up next to your target.
Mm-hmm.
It plays more towards the I'm gonna show up in the lane and do something fast,
Okay.
but without building his entire kit around speed.
Is there a mythic in particular you think he does like is he more of the Chemtech or any of like Frozen Heart or is he more of
Chemtech,
like a
I would
Sheen
say
one?
I wouldn't say go like the Chemtech, just because other than his ultimate, a lot of it's going to
Mm-hmm.
build itself around him going fast. Your goal isn't to ult someone and run really far away, like grab them from the first bush and pull them to the tower. Your goal is not to go very far. Your goal is to grab someone and hold them still to make them more vulnerable. And
Okay.
so, while his chem tank might get you in, it might be nice for jungle if you intend to get in and kill yourself.
Mhm. It's just
There,
like it's a little burst of
yeah,
damage and it slows enemies. So
it's there if your intention is to gank and get the kill. But if your intention is to go in and be a tank, I would say um, for a tank built Skarner, I would almost recommend the Frost Gauntlet, whatever
okay.
it's called. The one where your first attack every few seconds puts down the cold circle,
Mm-hmm.
because then your goal might be to hit them with a shard, ult them, pull them back, and then right as they get out of the ultimate, basic attack them, and now they can't run as fast.
Okay.
Um, or if you want to be super safe, another one that might play towards more being a tank. eh, I'm going over the tank ones because if you're being a bruiser, my best bet would be a Sheen. Like go for a Sheen build like Sunder or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if you want to be a tank that grabs someone and really puts them out of position and not in the security of their team, build the forget what it's called. The one that when you immobilize someone, it spreads out a couple lines of super slow.
Mm-hmm.
Because
That's
then if you
the glacial augment.
is that just glacial augment?
You're talking about like lines of ice and
Oh
stuff?
yeah, it is. I thought
That's
that was a
glacial.
mythic.
Nope, that's
That might also be.
it was an old active that was that you could get that was used the same materials as Rocket Bell or similar ones, but nope.
Yeah.
That was an old one. I used to run that one on Zyra. That was a lot of fun.
But like, if
Uh,
you really wanted to be that super annoying, build low cooldown, grab someone and their team can't help them, grab
mhm.
glacial augment. You grab someone while you have the frost gauntlet, and as soon as you grab them with your ultimate, glacial augment goes off, which means their
Mm,
team can't chase you as you pull them away.
okay.
And
Uh,
then once you end it where you are, you hit them with the gauntlet, and now they're slowed farther away from their team.
Okay. That's not too bad. I like that. That definitely sounds like a definitely more mechanically interesting champion.
Mm,
Did you want to hear mine or?
yeah.
So my idea with Skarner is at um I took a look at what tanks already exist in the game, what roles they do, and what's something that Skarner can do that no one else really has. And there was one tank you could say Bruiser depending on how you build him. I like going pure tank, but there's one tank I liked to look at, and that was Mundo, and the second one being Ornn. They are both scaling tanks because of either a powerful passive or because their stats scale with tank stats. And I took a
Mm-hmm.
look at Skarner and I'm like, what if we made you, rather than a sustain tank champion, we made him a uh we made him a shield based tank. Like there's not a tank to my knowledge um that has a lot of shielding. There's Shen who can give shields to somebody else with his ultimate and moves across the map, but I'm talking like just for themselves. There's not
Yeah,
really
Shen's
one that
good at
exists.
how often you can pull a sword to yourself.
Yes. So my idea was uh his passive is he gets bonus armor and magic resist. Um that scales either with his level. I was either gonna go with either his what his level is, or it scales off with a percentage amount of his HP. So a percentage of that HP is converted into armor and magic resist.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is, so there's champions like say Rammus that scale with armor, right? The more
Mm-hmm.
armor they get, the more they deal. Well, I didn't want to replace like it's like, oh, why not just pick this guy since he scales with both armor and magic resist over Rammus. Rammus is good against AD champions because all majority of AD champions are auto attack base, and Rammus
Yeah,
punishes
you
that.
taunt them. Yeah.
This is like Skarner is designed around fighting an average team, mix of physical and magical, and can build into one or the other. The scaling's not that high with the passive. I didn't want it to be like Aurelia. Here's a massive increase to your stats with a passive, but I didn't want it to be one that you could get easily access to. So it's like, oh, let's make it a leveling passive. It's a passive that gets stronger with leveling, kind of like Cassiopeia passive, where she gets more move speed based off a
Mm.
level. So the next ability I want to get into is actually the W. I like the shield aspect of Skarner. Like I said, I want him to be a shield based champion. I would actually like it if his W was I wish I would like old Skarner W to be his Q, where he gets a shield and he does damage around him. In the sense of like he it's not a big shield, it's pretty small, but that's where his tankiness comes from. That's his like quote unquote sustain in fights is being able to get shields off. It's not going to be as low of a cooldown so he's just constant like shield, 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 shield. You can't do anything. But I came with the idea of him being designed around the shield bash rune. I want him to use shield bash. It's not a rune that a lot of people run. It's like very
Hmm.
few. So the idea is he can use Q and get shield bash off. Like maybe have it like on a 6 second cooldown. You know, it's not too short, not too long. Or at least I'll say like 6 seconds, maybe max rank. But you know, he gets cooldown items, maybe it goes down to 4 seconds. It's still not the biggest shield. So you can go shield bash and you can go revitalize or whatever. The shield stat would scale with his armor and magic resist, not necessarily health.
Hmm.
Um, his E, I pretty much said I would keep. I like that it's a slowing projectile with a stun. I don't think I'd have it where it's a heal per se, but I'd like it if each proc of it was an increase to HP regen. Kind of like how Wukong passive
Yeah,
is,
as you continually get things, you start building up
yes, you
like
get
percentage.
magic like yeah, like Wukong gets armor and HP regen. This idea is Skarner is getting HP regen while fighting. So it's not healing, it's nowhere near a mountain. It's not on the same level of like, you know, HP regen like per moment like Set or Mundo, but it's something that's still there. So he's encouraged to stay in the fight and continue to fight.
Hmm.
And so that would like his E is the same. His new W, because I'm basically combining the old W and the Q together. His
Hmm.
new W is would it basically it's a it's the sense of he can put down the crystal spires because I wanted to keep something around like that because he's one of the few champions with a mechanic around that, and he can
Hmm.
put down the crystal spire in a location and it provides an AoE. And if the enemy champion is able to stand on it after a while, they capture it, they get gold, and you get no buffs, and you cannot put a new crystal in the AoE of where you put that previous crystal is. But if you not only can you recapture by walking it over, if you it's one that um I was either gonna have it where it goes away if an enemy stands on it, or you're able to recapture because I like that like able to capture and command kind of thing. But if I had
Hmm.
to pick, I guess I would say it actually just gets rid of it, so he can just put more down. But he cannot overlap. You cannot
Yeah,
have
there's a range limit to them.
yes, you cannot have like, or at least you can't put the base in the ring of another one. You can technically have the effects overlapping if you wanted to, but you cannot have the bases like next to each other, like a Heimer turret with Heimer turret or Zyro plant next to Zyro plant sort of thing. You
Hmm.
have to space it out. And then the passive of that ability was that while in that area, his Q is a bit stronger. He gets slightly more move speed, and he has increased mana regen while fighting champions. Not while in the area. He has to be fighting champions to have slightly better mana regen. It's not by much, but it's like a little bit more. Because the idea is like if he's not going with Shield Bash as his main rune, which is what I would prefer him to be going, it's that he's going. Um, yeah, he could go Presence of Mind maybe, and he could sustain in a fight.
Hmm.
And the ultimate was um, the ultimate is actually an ability. I like the idea he can grab and hijack. Um, the only other thing I can think of doing with the ultimate was that uh, it's a CC ability. I like the idea that he CCs and like capture them, but I would like it if when he capture, rather than it just being instant, like they're just stunned there and then that's all they can do. I'd like it he can either ult them and drag them, or he can ult them and then stab the ground and they're stuck in like a corral. There's only like
Hmm.
they're stuck to a tethered area. And if he tethers them in an AoE, like if he tethers them in his crystal area, they get reduced stats.
Mm.
That's just one of the things. I have others I'm still not quite finished with or other ideas of going with. But the main idea is I wanted him to be like a shield tank that's about staying in a fight for a long period of time. But it's not off of healing, it's off of shielding. And he gets more effects off of shielding. And all his stats, by the way, would scale with armor and magic resist. None of it
Mm.
scales with health. So it's not like you can just go a health build, throw in a demonic, and be done with it. It's like, no, I'm designing him around having these tank stats. However, I'd have it where his effects are counted separately between physical and magic damage. That way you could still go a Divine Sunder getting um, getting the benefits of the pen from that item, some more sustain if you need it, better chance of fighting tanks. And since he's still autoing, because he's not having, I'm not having him with a lot of low cooldown abilities, but enough where he can cycle through his abilities every like 5 to 6 seconds. And they're
Hmm.
not massive too. They're like the stun I have for the E, I'd keep it still the same. Like it's super short. It's nothing too long. It's just supposed to be instances of CC, instances of being like once he's in there, he's in there. But the fact
Yeah.
that he can put the crystals down where he needs to, he's basically, rather than making him a diver, he's just a full on frontline. If the enemy wants to engage, he's right there. If he wants to engage, he can get either there's some runes for that. He can grab Ghost. Ghost is a rune I was like thinking that he could just go. He doesn't need flash because he doesn't have a burst. He just wants to stay on top of them, so he could just grab Ghost. And again, I'm thinking maybe putting more shields on him. Maybe when he puts down a crystal, he gets a shield or something like that. Like that sort of aspect.
Hmm.
Like I want him to be a shield tank that scales with magic resist and armor. Because the best
Something I was thinking of when you mentioned there was like a passive that like as you keep hitting them, kind of like Wukong, um,
yes,
like
uh,
he gains health regen and all that.
yes.
On top of that, as you're hitting someone progressively, what if built
Mhm.
into that on top of the health regen, you gave him um like percent more shield on the W or on the shield?
Well, that's the thing. If he, sorry, I forgot to mention the the W, and the when he's in the crystal areas, they empower the other abilities. Maybe I've
Ah,
said it, but like the Q gets more shielding. The E is a more powerful slow. And it's not that the enemy has to be in the circle, it's Skarner getting power from the crystal. So he has to be in the circle.
so it's not like you can put the crystal behind you and be safe about it. But if you start
Hmm.
winning or they pull you out of your crystal zone, you have to put
Yes,
another one. But if you're
correct.
being pushed into it, they don't need to be in it. You do.
Yes. And I was either thinking they either destroy it by they walking over it, or they can just capture it, or they can like it's like a turret. They can damage it by throwing abilities or autos at it. Because the idea
Yeah,
is like
kind of like
if they're well, the reason is that if they're doing that, that's them putting their time and energy to getting rid of that rather than fighting you. You have a built-in CC stun thing, so if the first thing they're going to do is go in and attack that, you can then go and
you know, fire E at them, stun them, and you're still getting that at least a few moments of fighting in the circle before it goes away.
Yeah,
But I would also have
thinking to
it.
myself,
I was going to say the W has stacks. You hold a certain number of crystals depending on the level. So
mhm.
level 1, you can hold 2.
So like
And
the more you level it up, the more you can rapidly advance
yes.
with the charge. I mean, you could advance really far, slap down another one, advance really far, put down another one. You could space them if you needed to, but if
Yes.
you wanted a solid zone to fall back through, it'd be a later level thing.
Yes. But the other thing I was thinking of is maybe the turret has more HP and defenses while Skarner's around. If he's away, they get damaged and destroyed extremely easily. So if Skarner's pushed up super far, the enemy comes in from behind and destroys all his little crystals. He
He
just
doesn't have
lost.
anywhere
He doesn't have anywhere
to
he
fall
can
back.
go
Yeah.
now. He's lost it all because he decided to put them all down right away. And when if anytime he puts down a new one that's above the current cap that he has, it gets rid of the most recent one. Kind of like how like um like team
E-
like Heimer turrets work.
Okay. Have you played much of Dota 2 at all?
Not a whole lot. I looked a little bit into it. It's just not my kind of thing. I'm not going to be able to manage my own minions and the enemies to
Um,
deny farm.
have you seen
That's
the character Broodmother?
no.
So imagine if you were playing Elise, except not as jumpy as Elise,
Mhm.
but you're like permanently spider form. And it's to the sense of imagine you're playing Shiwa in a MOBA.
Mhm.
You put down very big areas of web, which can stack edge to edge. And what they do in Dota, which is a very big mobility thing because it's
Mhm.
a very brutal. It's not very, the jungle is not very equal side to side. There's a lot
Mhm.
of non symmetricity across the map. If you're in a web as Broodmother or any of the spiderlings she can spawn,
Mhm.
you have free movement. You can walk up or down or over any wall or trees without breaking them.
Okay, that's cool.
You can't see uphill or you can't see through the trees, but it unlocks free movement as well as
Mhm.
bonus move speed based on how much percentage max HP you have. So the more HP you have, the faster you get your move speed.
Mhm.
The lower HP, it's harder for her to run away. That's something they changed. But she also, on top of having more move speed at higher HP, meaning she has free movement, she can stack with her spiderlings. So when you get a big army of spiderlings, you're no longer fighting with each other to get basic attacks. You all stack on top of each other.
Okay.
And this builds into the idea that her whole kit is built for split pushing. Because
Mhm.
as you put down more webs than you can have, because at late game you can have like 9 to 13 webs, depending if you upgrade the ability with an item.
Mhm.
So you can cover a massive area. Like I think 2 webs in the idea of like where the outer turret to inner turret, two
Yep.
webs will get you from turret to turret.
Okay.
That's how big the like diameter of these webs is. Um, but the idea is Broodmother does not go out of her way to leave the lane because the moment she leaves the lane, she has to wait for a fairly long cooldown to put down new webs. And so what happens is she plays as a split pusher where your whole goal is to dominate this lane because if enemies walk into your web zone, you can pop out from anywhere. And that's something neat because that empowers her. She also gets
Okay.
HP regen while in the web. So
Okay.
it's hard to poke her. The being in the web, although it's unclearable, is a big power source to Broodmother. But
Mhm.
if you can go anywhere where she doesn't have a web, she's not gonna show up because Broodmother on her own without spiderlings that can stack on top of each other is very weak. But the moment you make her leave her web, she is slow. She's a big target. She can't run up any wall, so she has very limited escape routes. And because her spiderlings and her can't stack on top of each other anymore,
Mm-hmm.
it's if she runs her spiderlings right up to you before she gets there, she can't path past them to get up to you. So she has to walk in and fight you by herself or slap down a web before she fights you.
Okay.
And so they've built this entire character, kind of like what you're saying with Skarner, around creating a zone of the map that you are in control of.
Yep. Oh, the idea
You
also works in the jungle. You can place them out in the jungle. You get to move around a bit faster. You get your bonuses in there. You're not going to take a lot of damage because of your constant shield proccing and your CC, like normal Skarner is. But because you get to put them down, um, because that's the thing about current Skarner, you're relying on your teammate to grab your crystal spires. If
hmm
they don't grab those spires, you are less effective in team fights.
hmm
So
without
this
going out
one,
your way to get them.
yes. So this one is you can put them down, you get some move speed, you get to move around. The recharge time is going to be somewhat decent. Basically, the idea is there's plenty of tank items, both armor and magic resist that can give some cooldown that works with Skarner. I would still
hmm
keep him mana base. I think that works fine because then he can still get some decent items that like uh Frozen Heart. But so the design around him is he's basically going to he's kind of what we talk like we don't like the super fast like supposed to be super fast character. But that's the idea is like he doesn't have something in his kit that's making him fast. He's designed around to using Ghost as like when he's ganking, he's using Ghost. He's not going to be a heavy ganker. He's going to be great at clearing, great at controlling zones and areas as a tank.
hmm
And then when it switches around to team fights, he's able to stay in a fight for a decent period of time. That's his whole kit. He's not designed like he can still win 1v1s if you're able to keep the enemy away from your tower or your crystal spire and you're able to get your shields off at the correct time for either blocking abilities or while you're fighting and stuff like that. Like that's really effective. Like these aren't long-lasting shields. These are super quick, not around for very long shields. So
hmm
if the opponent's just, hitting you when your shields are down, you're not having a lot of regen besides going after the waves with your E. If you're playing lane, if you're playing jungle, you have plenty of regen, you have plenty of shielding. He's always going to have health. He's going to be great at clearing. But he's designed to lose around champions with HP, like percentage HP damage, like Vayne and the others. They're going to destroy him. They're just going to beat him. He has I would say I made him like maybe a B to A tier at most champion. He's
hmm
designed to lose around like anti-tanks. He's not going to be like an anti-tank that he's not going to be a tank that's good against anti-tank. It's like that doesn't make any sense. He's also not going to be good against champions that have more speed than him, like Lilia, for example, because
hmm
he still has to land his skill shot, which is easily avoidable with high movement speed characters. But he's not going to be like, oh, well, if people are faster than him, he has no way of defending himself. Like, no, he can still fight if he's in his area. If he's able to land the stun, he can deal some damage. If it's a long duration, he has his Q to stall out some time, like and things like that. And his ultimates for helping him as well, because I still like the pull, like the fact that you could pull an enemy to where your crystal turrets are, and then you could just plop it right down there, and then they're there right there, and they're stuck there. I think is really good. I would say maybe he can only do it in an area where he has his spires put out, and the range of the spires would not be very big. They're not like GP barrel small, but they're not going to be like what current is, where it can cover like three whole camps.
hmm
because
I,
it's like you're not supposed to have it at level 1, so you don't need it to cover every camp.
yeah. It, I was thinking about this with the ultimate, and I don't think it works for Skarner, but I'm kind of branching out from Skarner at this point. And the idea of grabbing someone and moving them where they need to be, or where they don't want to be, but where you want them to be.
Hmm.
Um, it with the kind of aesthetic that you get with characters like Awawi, Braum, um, and the new Udyr that's coming out, the big like muscle man kind of idea.
Yeah,
You see it a little bit with uh, Set, where he picks up an opponent and just moves them. What's your opinion on a character ultimate where like maybe they reach out and grab someone, and then if you were to imagine like a Lee Sin kick, but in a
mm.
direction you now pick,
So like a reverse Callista.
kind of. You grab an opponent and you throw them in a direction. You do not follow them. You throw them in a direction you want.
See, they already have that with somebody like Renata with her Q.
Kind of. But it's from their location. You'd grab the opponent, pull them to you, and then from your location you'd imagine if your character was a football player and you grab a Mumu and he is now your football. Where do you throw him? Who's receiving the touchdown pass?
Um, I guess that sounds interesting. It's just the problem is when you're a lot of abilities that force the opponent um to
Where's the
move.
counterplay?
Well, like you need some counterplay. Like Skarner's counterplay currently is you just get a cleanse thing and you beat him. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's just how it is. You get to end game and you just outscale him because he's a tank. But yeah, I would say I don't know. I like my idea just because it makes him have more of a unique presence as a shield tank with HP regen rather than just like, oh, I heal and I just like get super stupidly strong because I either have HP scaling or I buff my whole team. So he's not like Scion, he's not like Mundo, where you just HP just makes him
He's strong
stupid.
because he's just there, and you
Yes.
can't get rid of him.
Yes. And it's like, oh, but he has like magic resist and armor he scales off of, so does that make him better than Galio or Rammus? It's like, no. Passive wise, maybe he's might be better in terms of scaling with those stats, but not what those champions offer in their whole kit as a whole. Like
Mm-hmm.
Galio only scales off of his passive with magic resist. It's just the passive, so you don't really build magic resist on him. Besides maybe a Banshee Veil
Mm-hmm.
or a Spirit or a Force of Nature, maybe. Maybe he'll have Merc Treads, but like nothing like too like he's not gonna grab like Abyssal Mask or Spirit Visage and stuff like that. Like you're grabbing Galio because he has built-in magic shield, so magic resist shield, a taunt, and a giant ultimate knockup
Yeah, a taunt,
that's
a big
global.
area up. Doesn't it give armor to anyone you ult in towards, or is it just the
It gives
knockup?
them the magic resist shield that you currently have.
So yeah, like an assist to a teammate from very far away, as well as your own dash and knockup built into a separate ability, and you have max HP damage, so you can
Yes,
still kind
and
of spar with another.
Galio has a lot of burst damage.
Hmm.
He just somewhat falls off, but like it's kind of hard to. And Rammus is a super gank heavy like champion. Yes, he can clear his camps. They're not really the fastest, but he can clear all his camps. But he's a gank focus. He is about hitting the enemy, and like he doesn't need Ghost. He doesn't need Predator. He just has
Hmm.
a ton of built-in move speed with CC. A lot of CC. Skarner's CC is just tied to two abilities.
in ultimate and his E. I think that's
Mhm.
fine. I don't want him to be another high CC like tank because that already exists. Ornn does it. Ornn also
I mean,
scales with magic and armor resist, but that's just with his dash.
if
Well,
we want
technically his
more mechas,
passive. His passive gives him
rework
his passive gives him more armor and magic resist based off what he like has and everything, but he gets like the whole reforge thing. My idea is he retains a scaling of sorts with the armor and magic resist, and all his stats, all his skills scale with armor and magic resist.
basically you want him to be a threat to anyone who doesn't inherently like if your team doesn't pick anti-tank, if you see a
Yes,
Skarner coming,
yes,
you're gonna be
because
playing at a disadvantage. Like if you see an Ornn and you don't take true damage, you're gonna be playing at a bit of a disadvantage.
correct.
You
Like
know you're
he
not gonna hurt an
doesn't.
Ornn.
He also has no increase to health as well. So items that reduce armor and magic resist with either built-in pen or shred is going to affect him a bit. But that's the thing. I designed it that way so his runes, like his rune options, are everywhere. He can go the entire green tree for some more sustain in lane with the grasp, or aftershock for more armor and magic resist. He can go shield bash is the preferred one, but if he doesn't want that, he can still grab the tower taker, or he can grab font of life since he still has CC. He can grab conditioning for more armor, magic resist, and all that stuff. Um, he can take revitalize for some more healing and shielding, or he can grab overgrowth if he just wants more HP to go with everything. Like
Mm.
or you can grab since he has no CC immunity, you can just grab all the runes that give him tenacity. So he has a ton of tenacity.
Hmm.
So you can't CC him out of a fight. He'll just be there on top of you. But he's designed around the ghost summoner spell because I think it's a very underused one for tanks at least. It's really only used for like juggernauts
See.
or like yeah, it's like it's used for champions that are hyper aggressive damage dealers. The only other
Hmm.
one that does use it and isn't one is Rammus, but that's just because it make Rammus go fast, and that's the thing. And if you wanted him in jungle, he works with Chemtech, with the Chemtech for more move speed. You can grab a Stride Breaker if you want to for some reduction once you're on top of the enemy, but he is designed to control a zone. Like you want to
Hmm.
like if he's going for dragon, he's going to be really tough in that dragon fight if he's able to have mid or bot help him more than any of the other champions. It's like, well, yeah, when any champion has help from the other lanes, they're a whole lot tougher. It's like, no, he's supposed to be harder than the others.
Mm.
Like he's hard to counter jungle because he's strong in his own jungle because of his because he's putting down those things. And it's that's his whole that's the whole thing I've designed him around is if he's supposed to be this zone control thing with his passive right now, just keep that identity. He's a zone controller tank. He's not a gank heavy champion, and he's not a CC heavy champion. He's a control champion.
Mm.
He's designed around this is my spot. I'm going to be here. You fight me, we're having problems.
Or even like you get some champions like Tryndamere,
Mm-hmm.
where their whole aesthetic is, hey, I know you're under this turret, but I'm gonna walk in and I'm gonna hit it, and there's nothing you can do about it. Watch me.
Yes.
Or same with Mundo, like he's gonna walk in and he's gonna hit your turret with his ultimate going, and what are
Mm-hmm.
you gonna do? Watch him regenerate under tower?
Mm-hmm. But
Um,
the thing is, like, that's the thing with I like him being in top lane, is he's a champion that's really hard to fight under his tower.
yeah, like if you're a Tryndamere and you run in with the sole intention of smacking the tower 5 times while your ultimate's going,
Mm-hmm.
and Skarner walks up and ults you in return, you're burning every second of your ultimate
Mm-hmm.
under tower that is now not dying, and then Skarner's going to be ready for you when he comes out of it.
Yep.
And if you're sitting
He's
in his pylon zone now, you have reduced stats, and you're pinned in the tower zone, wasting your ultimate.
Yes, he is a champion that if you are going to fight him, he is going to make sure that you are fighting him. He doesn't have like he can launch his ultimate or anything. He still has to be in melee range. But if he's able to grab you and pull you in, then you know you're stupid enough to be that close and
Like
not face the
you want him to be
consequences.
a top laner where if you're going to be cocky, you're obligated to fight him the
Mhm.
moment you make it known that you
But
want
it
to.
also works in the jungle because if you're fighting in the jungle and you have your ultimate and you have a pylon, you can bring them to that pylon. They now have to fight you near that thing.
Hmm.
And that basically now tells that's basically like it's basically kind of like a Camille ult in a sense. You're locking them in an area, but rather than you lock them and you like make sure nobody else can get out, like you know how
Hmm.
enemies can't flash and stuff. It's like no, they can still flash to break the tether and everything, but that's them using a summoner spell. That's
Hmm.
you put that shit on 360-second cooldown for an
I was going to say,
ultimate.
how do you run the tether? Are you making it so with that idea of creating the ring? Is that at the end of the duration after you've dragged them, it creates a ring?
No, during the duration of it, you have to re-put it down. Then that puts the tether down, and that refreshes the duration. But they can still move around and stuff. But now they're stuck within the distance. So all you have
Okay.
to do is you get to your ring. As long as you're at the outskirts of the ring, when you put it down, it's re-brains it back to the center of the pylon. So the enemy is right on the outskirts of your ability.
Okay.
So
I was wondering if
you
it was
can
something
play it
like,
like old Skarner. They're just locked in. You can still use your Q. You get a little bit of shielding and some damage. But you can play it like old Skarner. Just drag it and be done with it. Or you can put it down and it's a little bit extended duration of CC, but it's not like you fully took away what they can do.
yeah, I was gonna say because like if you make it like, um, I figured it was gonna be kind of the diameter, like you either ult or you grab them or something, or you ult and it puts the ring around them. The diameter kind of like Jarvan's Cataclysm,
Mm-hmm.
but with the idea of the tether being like, because can you flash in Camille's or are you actually considered grounded?
You're grounded. You cannot flash. You cannot use any abilities to get out. It'll pull you right back in.
Okay, because I was thinking either if it wasn't that you're grounded, like you said, they could flash. I'd say it'd be kind of like Singe's pool, which I think is the same diameter as Cataclysm, where you're grounded into it.
Mm-hmm.
But thinking of that as you're grounded, you can't even summon or spell flash out of that, and that's kind of scary. If you were just pulled into a turret and s-
Yes,
slapped down with
I
no
think you
escape,
should still be allowed to flash and everything. But if you don't have flash ups, you used it earlier, or you were being stupid and try to flash under tower and fight him, you should be fucking punished.
yeah, like you're gonna have to burn a 5 minute cooldown
Yes,
or like a 3 minute cooldown or whatever it is
it's
to get
about
out.
5 minutes. Yeah, you have to burn it if you want to get out and you're being targeted by tower, and that's because Skarner's not like he can't fight you under tower. Like if he
Mhm.
puts his crystal thing under an enemy tower, the tower will shoot it and kill it. So
So
he
you're giving
can't
it kind of the treatment as
like Heimer turret.
trying- does Heimer turret take a priority damage over minions in the
Yes,
turret? Ah, okay.
yes. So you can put it down if there's like cannon and have it around for a little bit and you're fighting. That's fair. But he cannot, because he doesn't have burst, he doesn't have a way to fight you under tower. And he's not designed to do that. He's not designed to be this lane bully. I just win my lane. He's designed to, I can, if
The
you
counter
fight
split push.
me,
If he's in front of you, he's
basically, like
there.
he's like a counter split pusher. He is there. He will hold the line. You fight him, he is going to be there. He will stand his ground and kick your teeth in. It's the whole thing of, you're on my lawn, get the fuck off my lawn. And then you drag them onto your lawn to prove a message why you shouldn't be on their fucking lawn. That's the idea I have, and I really really like it. It's like the theme of like him being this person to defend a line but to drag people to it doesn't make too much sense. But the problem is like you're trying to have this person this we still want this to be like a somewhat intelligent, not evil bastard scorpion guy, but his ultimate ability is dragging somebody to their doom.
Hmm.
Like I would say I wouldn't think too heavily on it on why they would use that as an ability when they don't want to fight. Like if we made it like the whole thing with Kiana, like they're very like protector uh like people of the jungles and of Ishtal and stuff. But yeah, but no, I like the I like my idea just for the idea that he can place his turrets, his pylons. He still gets benefits from it, but he has to place them smartly. The enemy can still take it, and even though it's a massive increase and it's harder for him to lose in those areas, there are champions that can still beat him even when he's under his own pylons.
Mhm. He's not like a Mundo, like a wall without counter.
Correct. And because I'm not tying the HP regen to his pylons and instead I'm having it just tied to mana regen, even though he'll have mana sustain as a tank, so you don't have to get a tier item on him. That's another thing I wanted to avoid was a tier item. But since he can only regen off of his E that he's hit on minions or champions, basically just only get like regen stacks, not really a heal. He still
Mhm.
has to farm if he wants to sustain. So in long like fights and stuff, maybe you want that grasp to go with it because then you can do stuff. Or maybe you just go phase rush so you can have a full bunch of move speed when you're on top of somebody and beat their ass in. But yeah, and he's designed. Yeah, he's a tank designed to buy tank items and cooldowns. Maybe the mythic is Sunder. Maybe it's Stridebreaker. But like those are the only two. Maybe if you're trying to
Mhm.
do something cheesy and you go Triforce, sure. But no, I would 100% want him to be full blown tank, be a tank that's not only like using these items efficiently, for thanks to him having a scaling like passive that increase how much he has as the game progresses, but it's all these other things. And I didn't want his pylon passive to be to be that the passive I made up because I don't want him to have a passive that doesn't do anything if he doesn't have a pylon. I
Mhm.
think that's really dumb. I don't know what I would have the cooldowns for the pylon be. I know I'd have them somewhat high, so he has to be smart with it. It's
Mhm.
not like Heimerdinger turrets where once you have max cooldown, you can just throw them out whenever. It's designed around like he can have them up. He can't set them in the same areas as he's like within an AoE. Like there's restrictions in his kit. He's not designed to win every matchup, but he's pure tank. I want him to
Yeah.
be even if he's not like if you don't want him to be pure tank, you can still go like Sunder because it's a sustain item that gives him pen because he's a split in magic and physical damage. I'd say more so magical besides his Q. His Q is a bunch of physical, but his ultimate and his E is magic. So that way it stays in that 50-50 even though you're using your Q more. It's just your E and alt deal more instant damage.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like I said, I designed him with freedom of choice for runes and all that stuff. So what do you think of my version? I know I'm rambling, but man, I'm a massive Skarner fanboy. I have to.
It's pretty neat. I do really like the idea of keeping the aesthetic of, he's putting down a energy pylon. If you've played
Hmm.
StarCraft, woo. I like the idea of putting down pylons that give him a zone of control. It's kind of the same idea of if you try and engage on a Trundle when he's completely off cooldown,
Hmm.
the first thing he does is immediately make it his domain. He You can fight him, but if you don't take time to get him to waste it, you are now fighting him on his terrain, where
Hmm.
everything he does in the fight is now amplified.
Yep. And he punishes people for being really aggressively stupid
Hmm.
or stupidly aggressive, either one. Like he punishes people for being under towers. He punishes people for invading. Like he's a person that's designed. He's not designed to be like the ultimate like like anti esports if you want to call it that because esports people love ganks, which is really dumb.
Hmm.
But he's not designed to win every lane. He will lose. Like he will lose to Olaf because Olaf is CC immune, and they gave him a shield recently, and he has armor
He's
shred in his
definitely going to
Q.
lose the. He's definitely going to lose top when the meta shifts so far left field that Zeri goes top. And so you have a pure shield tank against
Mhm.
Zeri.
Well, yes, but the thing is, you could also because you're just buying tank items, you could just get a Warmogs and just
Yeah,
leave that
you
as
could
your sustain.
build
Because
it for
there's
you fight someone
honestly,
that beat
because honestly, a lot of tanks don't buy Warmogs.
you. Mm.
Surprisingly. It's like, well, Anathema's Chain. It's like, yes, Anathema's Chain is technically a better defensive item, but it's not for defense. Warmogs is for the HP and
It's
massive
for the
regen.
recovery and re-engage afterwards.
Correct. But because that's not what this meta favors, it's not that great of an item. So next patch, it's going to be really good. But yes, so Warmogs is a really good item on him because he has built-in magic resist and armor. Even though he doesn't scale with HP, it's sustain. He could honestly, after getting whichever mythic he gets that item second, he can be in lane the whole time in split push. He could just be a split push champion.
Hmm.
He doesn't have to team fight. Now, to be fair, he doesn't do well if he's ganked by multiple champions, but, if you wanted a champion that does that, pick Alawi.
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to redesign the champion to be able to fight multiple people in his little arena.
Going
But
3 hours. It's almost 3.25 hours.
yeah, so I think we did a good job. We didn't watch the video like I wanted to. Um,
I'll have to watch it tomorrow.
Um, the
Although,
one where it's a fan made one where a guy
yeah,
comes up with a really good system. There's a couple things I didn't like about it. There's a couple things like, well, they already used it for some recent champions, but it's good. Um, but I guess check it out if you want to. It's just a fan made rework of Skarner. Um, I recommend it. Definitely good listen through. Thank you guys for listening. Um,
I do
and
got one more thing to add that I
oh,
hope they really don't mess up with Skarner.
what?
The current Skarner and
Yeah,
the fan remake
yeah.
are not scorpions.
Oh God.
They have 6 legs.
Yeah,
Scorpions have 8 legs.
yeah, but we'll see what they do. Maybe this is the Runeterra scorpions where they have six
That's
legs.
like the little person inside of me that really cares that you properly make a
No,
bug
you
correct.
can't. You can't say that. It's Runeterra magic. This is Brackern, my dude. He's not full scorpion. He just has scorpion features.
Oh yeah, totally.
Mhm. But yeah, I mean, if anybody's listening, I'm gonna be posting this up on YouTube either tomorrow or sometime next week. Um, Sometime throughout this weekend, I'm gonna try to post it. I got work and everything, but yeah, thank you for listening. If you have any suggestions for future talks or anything, just let me know once that video's out on YouTube. Just check that whenever you can, and yeah, I guess I'll get to see you guys next week. Jinx, you want to say anything before I end it?
Uh, Been nice meeting everyone who watches this. Hey, if you guys ever come up with any good ideas on what to talk about, I'm always down to spend 4 hours talking with Tenoshi.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I could go longer, but some people have to go to work, and
Oh yeah.
uh, uh, you know, I work swing shift weekends. Sucks, but yeah. All right. Oh, have a good night, everyone.
Bye.